Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is a story about what if Naruto and Kyuubi get banished in Percy Jackson. Before I start, please support for more amazing content and do consider subscribing to my channel and share this video with your friends. This is written by BONESBOY15 and link in description and support writer. Let's start the video. Chapter 1. Mom's wake-up call. The sunlight peeked through the window of a rundown apartment in Konohagakure no Sado, where a sole teenage boy lay in bed. Well, in is being a bit generous. The teen was sprawled across the bed while lying on his stomach, sheets falling partially on the floor along with a leg, while a bit of drool came out of the corner of his mouth. His head was covered by short messy blonde hair, spiking uncontrollably in several places, and on both of his cheeks were 3 thin marks, looking akin to whiskers. The teen's arms suddenly wrapped around the pillow his head rested on, and he smiled in his dreaming state. He giggled sleepily and addressed his dream in mumbles, speaking to the pillow softly. Whatever he was dreaming of was interrupted by the loud buzzing of his alarm clock, startling the blonde from his sleep with jolt. Blearily, he looked around for the source of his current state of consciousness and found it. Raising a clenched fist, the sleeping teen then dropped it on the device, shattering it with ease. "Who keeps buying those stupid things? And setting them for so early?" asked the blonde with a growl. He closed his eyes in an effort to return to the realm of dreams. He deserved to sleep, damn it. Wasn't saving the world from a madman trying to become a god enough for that at least? It had only been 3 months since the end of the Fourth Shinobi World War, the Cold War between the 5 great shinobi nations now over. The nations were separate but allied, and peace was reigning supreme over the small continent known as the Elemental Nations. The chakra entities known as the Biju were mostly gone, hiding away from humanity to protect the world from another, would-be revival of their original form. The Shinju, a primordial entity that was partially responsible for the emergence of the shinobi that dominated the continent. Its defeat would go down in history as one of the hardest battles known to shinobi. And Naruto was right there on the front lines. He still had the occasional nightmare about it coming back, about this peace just being a dream. With another groan at being unable to go back to sleep, the blonde pushed himself up and got off of the bed. Groggily, the blonde stumbled from his bedroom to the small kitchen in only his boxers. He walked past an amused-looking red-heated woman, her violet eyes twinkling as she watched him wave at her tiredly, exposing a small circle in the palm of his right hand. "Morning, Mom," said the blonde. "Good morning, Naruto," the woman said with a small giggle. The blonde, Naruto, nodded tiredly in acceptance of her and continued his trek to the kitchen. He opened his fridge when it hit him. His mother, Kushina Uzumaki, had been dead since he was a baby. So that meant one of 2 things. Either he just said hello to the worst assassin on this side of the planet, or he was still dreaming. Finding the first option to be ludicrous, hell it was downright laughable, Naruto just decided to go with the dream and continued to pull out his morning serving of milk for his cereal. "So which dream is this? You guys are alive again?" Naruto asked as he grabbed a bowl for his morning breakfast. "Your father is still very much dead," said Kushina informatively. She had a small smile on her face as she watched her son prepare his breakfast nonchalantly. "Never had a dream with just you alive," said Naruto, with a thoughtful hum. He poured his milk into the dry cereal waiting in the bowl and then put the milk back into the fridge. He walked out of the kitchen to look at his mother still sitting on the couch patiently with a small smile on her face. "Never had a dream with just that alive either for that matter. Am I Hokage yet?" "No," said Kushina, another giggle escaping her lips as her son pouted with a spoon in his mouth. "Damn, seriously?" Naruto asked. He dropped his spoon back into his cereal into his bowl. "Lamest dream ever." "It would be if this was a dream, Naruto," said Kushina with a small titter of laughter at his confused face. "But it has to be," said Naruto with a frown. He pointed at her with his spoon in hand. "I mean you're supposed to be, you know." Kushina's smile dimmed a little at the reminder of that night 16 years ago. Curse the frailty of mortal bodies, making her leave such a brilliant baby alone as her then husband died alongside her. Splitting a small portion of herself off into a mortal shell was no problem, considering her flexible and constantly growing domain, she was rather powerful and often overlooked. "Yes, well, I may have died in that body, but I live on in my main form," said Kushina. Naruto arched a brow and set his bowl of cereal down. "Main form, are you a chakra entity?" Naruto asked. "But you feel like a civilian. Finally became a bit more observant, haven't you?" Kushina said. A smile tugged at her lips. "In a way, I am a projection, a clone of sorts. I need you, your family needs you. I would have come sooner, but you were needed here." "Why yeah, whatever you want, Mom," said Naruto, a bit taken aback. "Where do I need to go?" "I will take you as far as I can," said Kushina, standing with a smile on her face at his acceptance. "Then you must find Camp Half-Blood." "Half-Blood?" It will become clear to you when you arrive, sweetheart, said Kushina taking a step towards him. He took a step back. Alright, but can I say goodbye? He asked. Kushina bit her lip, she didn't have a lot of time here before they noticed her absence from North America. An idea hit her. The clone technique. Use your clones to say goodbye, you know the secret about them, don't you? Yeah, I retain, you're a genius, mom, said Naruto, making his mother smile back at him. I try, she said. Hurry, we haven't much time. Naruto nodded and stood straight up, holding his hands out in front of him. His index and middle fingers formed a cross in front of him. There was a flux of energy before the room became filled with duplicates, as Naruto named his signature technique. Hajukage Bunshin no Jutsu, multi-shadow clone technique. Alright guys, you know what to do, said Naruto to his clones, making each of them nod before they vanished in small explosions of chakra-infused smoke, similar to their dismissals. The blonde smiled proudly back at his mother. Ready to go. Good, said Kushina. She walked over to her son and put her hand on his shoulder. This could get a bit bumpy. Why? I'm not exactly supposed to be doing this, but it's necessary for what's to come, she said. He tried to ask her more about it, but before he could the air folded around them and the smell of lavender filled his nose. Their bodies became translucent and slowly faded away. He didn't feel anything for a second and then they re-emerged and he felt it. The burning, the pain in all of his body. Saying it hurt a lot was an understatement. It felt like he was regrowing skin that had been torn off one bit at a time. He heard himself cry out, felt his legs give and could feel gravity taking its hold on him. Naruto hit the ground unconscious, his body perfectly fine and intact, though his clothes had been changed to more appropriate jeans and a solid white t-shirt. Kushina knelt down next to him, her form flickering lightly. She cupped Naruto's face with both of her hands, kissing him softly on the forehead to give him a bit of a helping hand in this new world before pulling back. Her time was up, she succeeded in her goal and was being called back to be questioned by Zeus. She smiled sadly, rubbing her thumb along Naruto's cheek one last time before returning to Olympus to explain herself. Be strong, my little maelstrom, said Kushina before she disappeared once again, leaving Naruto unconscious on the cold dirt as a cool springtime breeze washed over him. Waking up with a groan, Naruto blearily examined his surroundings before holding his head. His clones sure had to deal with a lot of different reactions, it was a good thing he sent 3 to Tsunade and Sakura, how the third clones managed to get through the rest of their chiding of him just accepting someone pretending to be your mom and leaving to who knows where on a whim being irresponsible, he hadn't a clue. At least Kakashi and Iruka were more supportive, though they had their own suspicions. Hell, the person he was really worried about was his brother-in-arms rival Sasuke. All that bastard did upon hearing Naruto's apologetic farewell was slam the door on his face. The douche. Man, why is everything always so complicated with him? Naruto asked with a whine. His best friend was a pain in the ass to understand. It was like dealing with a girl sometimes. With a grunt, Naruto rolled to his upper back and kipped onto his feet like he hadn't just landed with what felt like the force of a freight train. The blonde twisted his body to loosen his core muscles and then stretched out his arms above his head. That was one hell of a Shunshin no Jutsu. Wonder if I can get mom to teach me that. Hey buddy. A voice called out to him, making Naruto turn and look at the speaker. He was a decently short guy, around Naruto's height, wearing a strange hat that looked like a duck's bill attached to a bowl of some sort, his curly hair sticking out this way and that from underneath it. He had a small beard on his chin, an awesome orange shirt, and had long pants similar to the ones Naruto woke up in, as well as some covered sandals on his feet. Hi. Naruto said, greeting the newcomer as he always does when not annoyed. Energetically. You do know that you're not supposed to venture this far into Central Park without a weapon, right? Asked the bearded guy. Central Park, Naruto asked. Where's that? The bearded guy looked at Naruto like he was an alien. Why, you do know what Central Park is, right? I'm guessing a park of some kind, said Naruto, a blonde eyebrow arching in confusion and amusement. How old are you? The guy asked. 17. Said Naruto, as though it were obvious. 17. The guy looked horrified, which honestly looked hilarious on his face. You do know why you shouldn't be out here alone, right? Should I? I am Tails. Said the bearded guy. What are you, new to this? How can you have never been attacked? I've been attacked tons of times, said Naruto with a frown. What? Really? So you know about the camp, then? Camp? Why does this always happen to me? The bearded guy said, moaning as he rubbed his face with both hands. Dropping his hands to the side, he sighed and then looked at Naruto with what could be called a serious glare. Alright, look, we don't normally get greens your age, but there's a camp for kids like you. I highly doubt that, said Naruto as he tensed a bit and got ready for a fight. This guy's anxiety was going off the charts. And then there was the feeling in the air. Like that the natural chakra here was poisoned. Or like something very important was missing. Haven't you ever wondered who your parent was? Asked the bearded guy. I know who my parents are. Naruto said hotly, his eyes narrowing and his pupils became small slits. You think you do, said the guy. So who raised you, mom or dad? For your information, neither of them did. Oh. Oh man, buddy, look Save it, said Naruto brushing past the guy with a frown on his face. I don't want to talk to you anymore. Wait, I said leave me alone, said Naruto as he walked away. He may have accepted that he had awesome parents, but that didn't mean he wanted to remember them not being there. Especially after how his father's reanimated corpse sacrificed himself to save the blonde. It was like losing the third all over again. The guy with the beard and the strange hat followed him as he wandered through the woods. Wait. Stop following me. I will if you just stop and wait. Let me finish what I was saying. Reminding me of what I didn't have. Okay, usually with kids like you. We're the same age. If you would just listen. Pass. This is important. Don't care. I got something more important to do. But. Look, unless you can tell me where my mom is. Yes. Naruto stopped to look at the guy. Well, maybe. You need to find your mom. She brought me here to help the rest of my family, said Naruto with a firm nod. He promised to help his mom, and Naruto Uzumaki never went back on his word. Okay, well as I was saying earlier wait, no this is related to your mom. I promise. Naruto rolled his eyes and stopped walking, turning to face the bearded guy. Well. Look, there's a camp for kids like you who need to find their parents, so to speak. Just come with me and we can sort this all out with the head counselor's help. Naruto looked at the guy, his blue eyes searching the guy's brown. Empathetically, he knew that the guy wasn't lying. Logically, he's given no reason to be lying. Still, he had to be careful. Naruto didn't know where he was and what the reason behind his mother's sudden arrival was, so he had to play it carefully. The war had made him realize that sometimes not always what it seemed. Alright, you've got my attention, said Naruto. Awesome, I wonder if this is how Underwood felt when he met Percy Jackson, said the bearded guy with a smile on his face. He held his hand out. Name's Billy. Billy G over tree. Weird name, said Naruto as he took the hand and shook it. Naruto Uzumaki. And you say my name is weird? Billy asked, taking his hand back. So, you ready to do some hardcore walking? Walking? Naruto asked, smiling in amusement. Yeah, unless you know how to drive. Billy asked. He was a bit hopeful in that aspect. What like a cart? Billy's hopeful expression turned into one of horror once again. Please tell me you're joking. Are you talking about one of those train things? You have those here? Immortales you're not joking. Billy dragged a hand down his face. Okay, Naruto, I guess it's a good thing you and me are going to have a long walk. Billy led Naruto out of Central Park, explaining the advancement of technology and summarizing the history of the United States as best he could. Naruto, as soon as he made it to West 59th Street, gaped at the lights and sounds of the cars. Billy smirked at it. If the blonde thought that was impressive, wait until he got to Times Square. They had to hurry, though. Billy could smell the monsters gathering. Whoever this kid's parent was, they were strong. I just really hope it's not one of those three and that it is his mother, Billy thought. He watched as Naruto looked around, swiveling his head this way and that in childlike wonder. It was interesting to see how this guy acted. One moment he was reminded of Cabin 6, the glare that was set on him was that damned Athena glare, he was sure of it, but something told him that wasn't the case. There was something about this guy that reminded him of Grover, too. Wow, this is amazing. Naruto said as he and Billy walked down 7th Street. He was in awe at how large the city was. Konoha had nothing on it. And you're saying that this is one city of many states? Yep. Wow, Naruto whistled as he turned around while walking, his eyes on the towers that just continued to rise. He nearly walked right into the street again, only to be saved by Billy, who pulled him back from the road just as a car raced by. Thanks. No problem, said Billy, shaking his head in disbelief. This kid is too much. At one moment he looks like he's going to kill me, but at another he's carefree as can be. There's only one Olympian I know that matches that description, but he doesn't give off the dreamy vibe, and I haven't felt compelled to do anything he says yet. What's all that light up ahead? Naruto asked, curious of the blinding light that stood out even among the bright headlights of the cars that drove past. Billy smirked, knowing what would come soon. His smirk fell as the horrid smell of underground hit his nose. His eyes were wide, his breathing sped up, and the young satyr kicked his shoes off so he could run better, revealing his hooves. We need to move, now. Billy said, shoving the blonde forward into traffic. Don't get hit by a car and keep running. Why? Naruto asked as he easily kept pace with the satyr. A horn blared, making Naruto look to the left and see a car coming at him and Billy. The driver looked irate that someone dared to run across the street when he had an obvious red light. His irate look turned to shock when the crazy blonde that chose to run across the street grabbed the other teen and cleared the rest of the 55 feet in one jump. Thanks, said Billy, a bit shocked from the sudden jump. Naruto grabbed him by the back of his shirt and helped him back to his feet as they continued to run towards the brightly lit portion of the city. Naruto spared a glance behind him and saw a large cloud of shadow, several red lights coming from it. His eyebrows narrowed in thought before returning his attention ahead of him. "So, we running from the giant black cloud?" he asked his new friend. "It's a cloud. It's never a cloud. Die immortals, why is it a cloud? I take it that's not normal, then?" Naruto asked as they ran. All he got were more concerned whimpers from the satyr. They broke into the small square of blindingly bright lights, which made Naruto pause from culture shock and awe. Noise was all he heard and the lights were so distracting, he barely heard Billy telling him to hurry up. He did hear Billy cry out his name in warning as the cloud engulfed the blonde foreigner. Billy fell to his knees as he heard the snarls and the tearing. The kid didn't even make it to camp, poor guy. And this was his first one too. Hopefully it got easier like Grover said it would. Guess not everyone can be like Grover Underwood, getting the son of Poseidon to camp alive with ease. Still, there was a small part of Billy G over tree that hoped the new guy would make it. There was sudden yelping, and Billy had to drop to the ground to avoid being hit by a flying giant black mastiff, a hellhound. Billy looked back at the cloud with wide eyes, seeing it grow up and the yelps increasing. "I said get off," Naruto said, standing abruptly with one of the hellhounds held above his head. The other hellhounds were forced to tumble back as he stood, quickly recovering and snarling at the blonde. Naruto glared back at the few in front of him. "Don't forget your friend." The hellhound in his hands learned to fly before being reunited with two members of its pack and taking out a streetlight with the distance they got. The hellhound tried to take Naruto by surprise, leaping at him from behind. Naruto turned and punched it square in the nose, stopping it midair and making it fly back. When another tried the same tactic, he spun on the ball of his foot and brought his heel across the side of the monster dog's face, sending it flying. Seeing that these simple attacks were doing nothing, the hellhounds rushed him once again. Billy watched as the blonde punched, kicked, and in one instance bit the hellhounds like they were as light as a feather and their teeth were made of clouds. This was insane, what he was seeing. What he heard next kicked his adrenaline into overdrive. Sirens, mortals had invented them to alert, and alert they did. The hellhounds' assault continued as the white and blue vehicles of the New York Police Department swarmed Times Square. The sounds of a helicopter were heard and a light was shined down on the fight between what Billy knew were hellhounds and Naruto Uzumaki. A few more helicopters joined the scene and a couple of the mega screens in Times Square changed to the news, showing the fight as it happened. There was another yelp that got Billy's attention and he dove to the side to avoid being flattened by the flying hellhound. The hellhound in question dissolved as soon as its back hit the ground, revealing that Naruto had given enough internal damage, possibly a collapsed lung or something of the sort, to kill it. The news cameras zoomed in when a blue light appeared in the center of the mound of lions that the cameras saw. "Rasenrengen." Naruto's voice cried out as the hellhounds were sent flying from the pile they were in, dissolving into gold dust that scattered in the wind. Naruto drove what appeared to be a blue bowl right into the face of the last hellhound, grinding it into golden dust and leaving him alone with two blue spheres glowing in his hands. High above the Empire State Building, the Olympians watched through Hephestus's massive televised screen, a holographic image that duplicated the effects of a television, acting like a sort of one-way iris messaging. One Olympian in particular smiled proudly at the image of the blonde with a glowing ball of energy, eviscerating the hellhound sent after him. "Damn," said a man with light blonde hair, dressed like a work-first businessman with a Bluetooth device in his ear. He lowered the stylish, yet professional sunglasses down his nose as he watched the fight before him. Hermes was impressed with what he saw and said what many were thinking. "Whose child is this?" asked the Queen of Olympus. She was intrigued, but the boy was strong like another certain oaf, and he only became that way after ingesting something that was not rightfully his. "Yes, whose is it?" the green-eyed man wearing the Tony Bahama shirt and sandals asked, smirking at the well-dressed blue-eyed man that sat next to the queen. "Not mine," said Zeus with a frown. He was certain that he'd only had interactions with Ms. Grace. The giggle came from the beautiful woman seated next to the creator of their screen. Her eyes flickered to purple and her hair to red for a brief moment that had a woman with raven-colored hair narrowing her gaze. The raven-haired woman looked from the smiling Aphrodite to the screen and back several times before her gray eyes widened in realization. "I don't know how, but you were the loudmouth tomato," Athena said, glaring at the smirking goddess of love. "Guilty," said Aphrodite, practically singing the word. She leaned back on her throne with a smile as the other Olympians looked at her. "What can I say, love works in mysterious ways." "I will find out what you did, Aphrodite," said Athena, scowling. She returned her gaze to the blonde on the screen. "And I will make sure you do not corrupt another." "You can try, Hootie," said Aphrodite, smirking as Athena's scowl deepened. "He's already been in contact with his mother." "Aphrodite," said Zeus in displeasure at the openly disobedient comment. "You know the law." "I never raised him," said Aphrodite with a pretty frown. "I merely brought him from his father's home. Where he should have remained to follow in his father's footsteps," Athena said with a scowl. "Like those old crones would have let him try," said Aphrodite with a scowl. "They're more biased than Romans. A lot more volatile, too." "Sounds like my kind of people," said Ares with a grin. He withered under the glare his girlfriend sent his way. "After all the hell Naruto went through to unite the countries, I would never let you uproot it, Ares," said Aphrodite, scowling at the god of war. "It's partially your fault that he had to bother with it to begin with." "Oh, you're talking about Mom's Island," Apollo said, snapping his fingers when he caught on. He looked at the image that was paused. "I never would have guessed. Looks like an East Coast kid." "He got all those handsome qualities from his father," said Aphrodite, sighing in bliss at the memory that made Ares scowl. Surprisingly, Athena joined her bloodlusting brother in scowling at the goddess of love's words. "We were told not to intervene with the lands of the moving continent, Aphrodite," said Athena. Zeus nodded as he recalled making that decree. "Yet you still had Minato anyway," said Aphrodite with a smirk. "And I didn't intervene. I simply spread the love with absent-minded control, much like Apollo does with the sun or Artemis the moon." The twins nodded in agreement with that, using their godly energy to keep track of the island they were originally born on. It was probably why that land was so potent with strange energy that mimicked their own coursing through their veins. Of course, the titan that enlarged it to the size of a small continent was sleeping and wouldn't reveal the reasons behind why she had. "Still, you disobeyed that decree when you brought the boy here," said Zeus, looking at the blonde as he looked around at the mortal authorities. "Well, I'm sure the mortals could handle him. I believe a final test is in order." "Is that really necessary?" Poseidon asked his brother. "Uncle P, you can't play favorites because he's named after stuff that happens in your domain," said Apollo, getting strange looks. "What? Naruto Uzumaki. It's Japanese, I know this stuff." While Poseidon brooded at being called out on why he was so intrigued in the boy, Zeus looked back at the blonde. Naruto was looking around with wide eyes at the flashing lights and the screens with his face on it from different angles. Underneath him was the headline "Superheroes Exist. Teen destroys lions in Times Square." Zeus scratched his beard in thought before nodding. "The boy will be tested," Zeus said, confirming his decision while Aphrodite scowled and Athena frowned. "Send in a Hydra." "Message sent," said Hermes, finishing the request to Hades for a monster. He looked at his father. "You sure he should be doing this in Times Square?" "The mortals will forget by tomorrow," said Zeus. "Kate and Hypnos will ensure that." "Hey Billy?" Naruto asked his friend as the NYPD trained weapons on him. "Why yeah," said the stunt satyr. He'd never seen anything like that, even during the war, no demigod had survived a swarm. "What are they doing?" Naruto asked, gesturing to the cop setting up a perimeter. Well, kids like you aren't exactly normal," said Billy, who was rapidly trying to think of reasons why this was happening. Man, if it was his fault the mortals rediscovered the Olympians, he was so going to get it. "But what are they doing?" "With their hands?" Naruto asked, seeing all the small objects in the uniformed men's hands. He guessed this was the city's military considering all of the similar uniforms. The blue clothes didn't look very protective though, and those hats were ridiculous. He bet his whole supply of kunai could finish these guys off. "Put your hands above your head or we will shoot," said one of the policemen. Like this?" Naruto asked, raising his hands up. He wasn't really in the mood to deal with the city's military, but he wasn't exactly eager to fight them either. "Get on your knees and put your hands behind your head," said the policeman. Well, now he was just being silly. Naruto had already surrendered, hadn't he? "Naruto, just do what he says," said Billy, doing exactly as the policeman ordered. Naruto gave his new friend a confused look before complying, getting down on his knees and interlacing his hands behind his head. Police started to move forward, their weapons still trained on the blonde kneeling in front of them, but then the ground suddenly moved between them and the blonde. "Don't move," an officer ordered, keeping his gun trained on Naruto. "It's not me," Naruto said back, watching as the ground cracked and shifted. An unfortunate officer standing too close to the cracking was sent flying as the concrete-covered ground shattered and a large-scaled head shot up from under the ground. It looked like a diamond, and shortly afterward, 4 more heads that looked exactly the same sprouted close beside it. "Fall back. Get the people out of the way. Run," were the cries of the policemen as whatever they saw scared them enough to retreat. But it was dead," Billy said, falling to his butt and scooting back in fear of what stood before him. Settling on a massive lizard-like body was the Hydra, 5 heads focused on the unclaimed demigod that knelt before it. Billy's eyes widened when he recognized the target. Naruto, run. Naruto didn't need to be told to move because he rolled out of the way as soon as one head dove at him with its mouth open wide. Avoiding being bitten by razor-sharp teeth was at the top of Naruto's to-do list at the moment. He dodged again, this time avoiding another head, before deciding to make some distractions. He crossed his fingers in front of him and focused the chakra. Page Bunshin no Jutsu. Naruto said, making 8 clones appear next to him. They rushed at the monster while Naruto went to help the now bulging-eyed Billy up from his seat. But how but you I? Billy failed to find words, stumbling over himself as Naruto got him to his fey hooves. Explain later. What is it and how do I kill it? Naruto asked, pulling Billy with him when a clone was dispelled due to a ball of acid sent from one of the Hydra's mouths. Well, that just replaced the razor-like teeth at the top of Naruto's to-do list. Hydra, said Billy, pulling himself together. Every head you cut off, to replace it. Sharp claws and teeth, acid spit and reported to have fire breath. Good, thanks. So how do I kill it if I can't cut the heads off? Naruto asked. Well. I'm working on it, alright, I'm working on it. Billy said. Geez, I'm not a member of Cabin 6, cut me some slack. What am I supposed to do until then? Naruto asked. Billy shrugged haplessly before pulling the blonde with him out of the way of another shot of acid. Avoid dying. Billy said as they both got up from the ground. So improvising, said Naruto. He nodded with a grin. I'm good at that. Boss. A clone shouted, making Naruto turn to look at it. Making eye contact with the clone that signaled him, it dispelled and Naruto got its idea, now technically his idea, and he beamed. You said don't cut off the head, right? Naruto asked. Unless you can cauterize the neck before it regrows 2 more heads, said Billy, remembering that tidbit from the legends. That's how Heracles killed it. Ucles. Explain later, duck. The 2 dropped as a stream of fire was shot from one of the now 6 heads. Apparently, the clone that had dispelled used a Rasengan on one head, and Naruto winced as another clone was forcibly dispelled. Those tails were something to watch for, too. So close range is no go for me, said Naruto. He put 2 fingers in his mouth and whistled, signaling 2 of his clones, before waving them over. When they managed to break away and join him, he pointed at the Coca-Cola sign not too far away. Go gather natural chakra, we're going to shuriken that thing. Alright. You're the boss. The clones leapt over the police barricade, running for the building they were told to go to at top speed, and then, much to the onlookers' surprise, up the side of said building. Naruto watched them go, creating more clones to buy him some time. Now with the knowledge of his plan, the clones knew just to keep the Hydra's attention, instead of trying to kill it. He waited and stalled for a good 15 minutes, before sending another clone up to the 2 meditating ones. When both were dispelled, Naruto's eyes dilated, becoming toad-like and golden as he felt the area's nature chakra fill him, an orange pigment appearing over his eyelids. It wasn't a lot, but it was enough. With his permanent chakra battery sleeping off the after effects of the war, Naruto would have to make do with his minor sage mode. Glaring at the Hydra with his fist clenched, the blonde was sure it would be. His hand was lifted above him, and another Rasengan started to form, but a clone was created beside him, holding both hands up at the small blue ball of energy. The Rasengan changed, becoming larger and more like a throwing star, a shuriken. Naruto's clones dispelled at once, confirming his thoughts on the civilians moved far enough back to not be killed by the coming attack. The clones gone had the Hydra shifting all 6 heads on him, making Naruto grin at it. All 6 of the Hydra's heads roared at him challengingly, and he felt its anger. Not at him specifically, but what he was. A word floated between Naruto's empathic link with the Hydra. Godling. Well, that was something to ask Billy about. For now, Naruto reared his hand back and then launched the attack forward. Dueton. Rasen Shuriken. Naruto said as he threw the ball of energy at the Hydra. Olympus watched the attack connect and their eyes widened as the intensity of it eradicated the Hydra's body. Not even golden dust remained or the trophy fang that was expected of it. Zeus in particular was in awe, having felt all the thousands upon thousands of winds descending on the monster and felt them shift just appropriately to stay within the dome it created. Ibs on fighting him first. Ares said, his fiery eyes burning with bloodlust. Hermes and Apollo burst into laughter at his exclamation, making him scowl. What? You did see what he did to the Hydra, right? Apollo asked with a smirk as his laughter died down. Apollo raised his hand palm up and made an explosion gesture. Boom, gone. You want to fight a kid that can do that? Ha. He finished it. This was all Athena could manage to say, her eyes narrowed as she watched Hephestus replay the attack. She smirked at her scowling brother. Considering you lost to Percy Jackson when he was 12 and untrained, I believe you wouldn't last a second against Naruto Uzumaki. Screw you, owl pellets, said Ares with a scowl. Aphrodite just smirked quietly, watching as the god and goddess of war bickered over who would win. Naruto would beat Ares hands down. According to Olympian law, Ares would have to fight fair. Had Ares been allowed to use all of his god powers, then perhaps he'd win, but against a hero, he was limited. Ares' arrogance would be his downfall. Aphrodite. Zeus's voice made all of the gods stop talking and look at their king as he addressed the demigod's mother. Your son used my domain. My son created those winds, said Aphrodite, smirking at Zeus's scowl. He didn't manipulate your domain, he made his own. That is impossible. Demeter said, frowning. Not so, said Athena. The people from the moving continent have done similar for centuries. It is expected of a child born there to be able to create their own element from their life force. They create the element within and expel it outwards with their techniques. The fact remains that he used my domain outside of the moving continent, said Zeus, giving Aphrodite a pointed glare. He is the grandson of Uranos, said Aphrodite with a pretty smile, making Zeus's scowl deepen. I will let this altercation slide, said Zeus. He held a finger up. But know this, if he so much as tries to manipulate the sky, I will end him. Now, Zeus, said Poseidon, gaining his brother's attention. Considering the latest developments, I think it would be in your best interest to let the boy be. After all, the people from the drifting continent live on my domain as much as under yours. You've known they can do this, you're just jealous the boy did it in a way you can't comprehend. I am no. And, said Poseidon, cutting his brother off. That he isn't your offspring. Had this been Thalia Grace, for example, you would have shrugged it off. Zeus scowled at Poseidon for bringing that up. Great, now he looked biased. And as the god of justice, he wasn't allowed to be biased. Well, damn it, that's just not fair. Fine, I won't kill him, said Zeus with a scowl. Happy? It's improvement, said Poseidon with a chuckle. Can I kill him? Ares asked hopefully. Absolutely not. Aphrodite said before the king could retort. She glared at her boyfriend with heat in her now oddly purple eyes. Touch my son Ares, and there will be hell to pay. Well, that's no fun, said Ares with a scowl. His scowl fell at Athena's added glare. His sister then shifted her gaze to the demigod's mother. You should have left him on the continent, said Athena with a frown. Aphrodite returned it with her own frown. Considering that the camp has only fought against monsters and rogue campers, I figured it would be best if we had someone who could help them deal with what was coming, said Aphrodite. Apollo blinked, recognizing what she meant by that. Of course, his twin beat him to the punch. Why would one of your children know how to deal with that? Artemis asked with a frown. Well, he has a monster inside of him, said Aphrodite, glancing at the king. A beast he can control and use to his advantage. She glared at Athena. One that I had under control, except your son decided in all of his brilliance to deal with in his own way. Minato was doing what he felt was right, said Athena with a scowl. Minato? Who's Minato? Hermes asked. Minato was a child of mine who lost his father shortly after his birth, said Athena with a frown. He was raised on the drifting continent and eventually became the leader of one of the small military villages. Really? Boring job that had to have been, said Ares with a snort. You say that, but you don't know Minato like I did, said Aphrodite, interjecting and making Athena scowl once more. She looked at the screen and waved her hand, making two images pull up. A picture of Naruto as he was today and a similar-looking blonde with a narrower face and piercing blue analytical eyes. Minato Namikaze, the fourth fire shadow, a title used for the village hidden in the leaves for their dictator, was the kindest, smartest and strongest for 10 years after his promotion to Jonin, or expert shinobi. You're saying that Pansy was a ninja? Ares asked, once more getting a glare from Athena for the comment. Minato wasn't a pansy, said Athena, having taken notes of her son's life and given it to her daughter after the second Titanomichi to keep them in the loop and to reward her cabin for such great performances and loyalty during it. Minato, during the continent's third war, had eviscerated a squad of over 100 enemies in less than 5 seconds. Beat my record by 1 second, said a pouting Aphrodite and getting odd looks from her. She blinked and her eyes shifted back from purple. Sorry, still assimilating Kushina Uzumaki back in. Assimilating you split yourself to walk amongst mortals. Athena said with a look of rage. That was forbidden even before the Silver Age began. It was forbidden for minor gods and other deities, said Aphrodite with a scowl. Not for Olympians. I'm surprised none of you have ever tried it. It's quite refreshing. Aside from that new idea, said Hermes, snapping the Olympians from the thought of walking amongst mortals. How did Minato move so fast? He was inspired by a legacy of Zeus, said Athena, waving her hand and bringing up the image of the legacy, a white-haired man with red markings and a serious look on his face. Tabarama Senju. A master of what they call Fuinjutsu, he developed a space-time technique that allowed him to teleport. Minato made a jutsu based off of that, the Horatian no Jutsu. Named it after Grandpa, did he? Apollo asked in amusement. He looked at Zeus. Flying Thunder God. Smart boy, said Zeus with a small smirk. It allowed him to teleport, said Athena, glaring at the archery god for interrupting her. Granted, he needed to use a special kunai to do so, unlike his predecessor. Ah, so your brat wasn't as good as you say, said Ares. Better than you at times, said Aphrodite, making the god gape while the room laughed at him. The purple color in her eyes faded and Aphrodite flushed. Wow. Apollo said, laughing at the look on his brother's face. Well, now that we know about Minato, tell us about the kid. And so Aphrodite did, ecstatic to get onto a different subject. She told them of his growth from a troublemaking youth he was so cute growing up, wearing his bright orange jumpsuit, to a hero of the people. At age 13 he had liberated several villages and countries from tyrants alongside his team. At 14, he lost his virginity and was a little shy about doing so. Athena scolded Aphrodite for watching that, but she claimed she couldn't help it. Kushina's attached soul got a look at all of Naruto's dirty little secrets. Aphrodite then continued, after scaring Ares into silence while threatening his jewels if he kept laughing about Naruto's loss of virginity, telling them that at 15, he was learning to manipulate nature to become stronger, mastering his summons after his and Minato's sensei died. Athena gave a frown at this, conflicted over the death of the man that helped train her star child of the previous generation. Hermes, however. Wait, back up, said Hermes, holding his hand up with eyes narrowed. He took in nature. Became part of it, said Aphrodite. She looked to her husband and gestured to the television. Can you move it back to the fight with the Hydra? Hephestus rolled his eyes and rewound the images until it came to the fight in question. At the end, just before the Rasen Shuriken. There. She pointed at the screen. Can you zoom in on his face? Child's play, said Hephestus. He waved his hand and blinked at what he saw. A glitch. Sage mode, said Aphrodite. Her eyes were purple as she looked at her husband. Thank you, Hephestus. The gods looked at her oddly, and Hephestus was stuck in a state of shock. Aphrodite didn't notice, pointing at her son's eyes. His eyes become like a toad's, a side effect of learning through them how to manipulate nature. It enhances his strength and speed, making him as strong as Heracles. Hopefully not as pig-headed, said Hera with a huff. Not even, said Aphrodite with a titter. It also makes him extremely empathic. Really? Artemis asked, intrigued. Empathy was a rare trait, even among Aphrodite's children. He's particularly connected to negative emotions, said Aphrodite with a sigh. My poor baby, such a happy boy, shouldn't have to worry about these things. Aphrodite, focus, please. Asked Demeter. Well, aside from the mastery of Sage Mode and the war, he was the primary reason the fourth war in the moving continent was won, said Aphrodite. Athena smirked when Aphrodite looked at her. He seems to take after his father in that aspect. War heroes runs in the family, said Apollo, stroking his chin. Great story. Anything else? The beast, for instance, said Zeus, insistently. Aphrodite sighed as all eyes went to her. This could take a while. While the Lady of Doves divulged her son's darkest secrets and Naruto recuperated with Billy, a strong entity stirred within the crusts of the planet. A small tremor went through Times Square. It was as though something was searching for the source of power that was recently shown. Partially out of concern and partially out of curiosity. Aya was interested in whatever happened in Times Square, very interested. Chapter 2. Camp Half-Blood. As the sun rose on the two new friends, they came through a small forest near where Billy said the camp was. Billy also explained why he looked so different, what with the goat legs and all, that he was a nature spirit called a satyr and aged twice as slowly, earning Naruto's sympathy that the poor guy had to redo most of his educational career. Naruto was relieved to hear they were so close, because he wanted to ask more questions about the state of the world outside of his own. Primarily about the lack of nature chakra. Naruto had nearly collapsed after he released Sage Mode, stumbling more than once into Billy as they ran away from the mass confusion he caused in Times Square. The nature here was weak, something big was missing from it, and as a sage, Naruto was not happy with it. While the growth of humanity away from his home was amazing, it had killed a lot of nature. When he brought this up with his friend, he was surprised by the look of surprise that came across Billy's face. How could you tell? Billy asked. Was he a son of Demeter? That could explain the feeling of nature that surrounded the blonde. When I sent those two clones to gather nature chakra, I felt as though something was missing, said Naruto. After seeing all those impressive buildings, it's kind of obvious what had to go to make all this work. I mean, the last trees I saw that were thriving were in Central Park. Central Park, said Billy, a bit wide-eyed. You really care about this, don't you? Yes. Naruto said, a bit confused at Billy's response. I'm a sage, why wouldn't I? A sage? Billy's heart nearly stopped. Sure, he's met demigods that were vegetarian, but they usually turned out to be not all that interested in environmentalism or were far too interested in the case of an extremist that came from Demeter's cabin. But as Sage Billy heard stories about sages, the career dying out long ago as Apollo's domain became more science-oriented. Hardly any of Hermes' kids nowadays picked herbs anymore, and most of Apollo's kids preferred focusing on their archery, well, except for the cabin counselor whose mother was a doctor. Heck, the only modern sages today were the hunters of Artemis, and even that was stretching it. Billy wanted to believe Naruto at face value, but he had to be sure. So. Prove it. What? Naruto said, looking at Billy as the satyr stopped cold. Prove that you're a sage, said Billy, crossing his arms. Okay, said Naruto with a shrug. He promptly sat down, crossing his legs and interlacing his hands together. He took a deep breath and cleared his mind, his eyes closing as he did. His breathing slowed and became deathly quiet, making Billy worry for a moment that he had put himself in a death-like trance. Persephone was another possible mother, rare though her demi-children were, so this would be a very upsetting situation. Then, Billy felt it. Nature was being drawn to the blonde, even Billy wanted to take a step closer, to lend him a hand when he needed to. Morning jays fluttered around him, and birds settled on his shoulders, chirping and nesting around him in harmony. A small orange fox and several rabbits came out from their burrows, approaching the human curiously. There was a shriek and an eagle swooped in, flapping its wings as it came to roost where the startled morning jays fled on Naruto's shoulder. Physically, nothing about the blonde changed except for his eyelids, now orange with red mixed in above them. Naruto took another breath and slowly opened his eyes, looking at Billy with the eyes of a sage trained by the toads of Myaboku. Golden in color with toad-like pupils, Naruto's eyes were entrancing to the satyr. So what do you think? Naruto asked in amusement as the animals of the forest gathered around him and settled next to or on him peacefully. Billy shook his head, the trance he was in now broken after Naruto spoke. Wow, you really are a sage. I thought you had to be an old man to be one. Nah, just have to learn how to take the nature chakra in and give it back at the same time, said Naruto, shrugging nonchalantly while not disturbing the creatures settled around him. He stroked the head of the fox laying on his lap and reached up to lightly brush the eagle under the beak. Friendly, aren't they? The eagle gave a small cry at the touch and nipped his finger, making Naruto chuckle. Okay, no touching, I get it. He let his connection with nature fade away and the animals slowly scattered, save for one. The eagle, which cried so proudly on its arrival, stayed put where it was on Naruto's shoulder, making Naruto and Billy blink in surprise at the sight of it. Naruto stood, the eagle staying put stubbornly. Well, this is interesting, said Naruto in amusement, trying to jostle the eagle by adjusting his shoulders, only making it dig its talons into him. Ow. Billy, help me get it off. Easy, Naruto, this is a sacred animal to one of the gods, I can't just manhandle it, said Billy, getting a squawk from the bird of prey. Okay, my bad. I didn't know you were a girl. She's stubborn, said Naruto with a grunt, reaching for her talons and getting his fingers pecked at. Okay. Geez, testy, aren't you? She doesn't want to leave, said Billy, looking at the eagle and bawing at it. He got a shriek in return and looked at Naruto in amusement. She likes you. What? She likes you? She can't explain it, and quite frankly once an eagle has their mind set on something. Let me guess, they stick to it. Pretty much. Think you can have her relax, then? I won't shake her off as long as she doesn't sever my shoulder. Billy translated the request and the eagle complied, her talons sliding out of their grip on Naruto's shoulder, making the shinobi sigh in relief. He hesitantly reached up, holding his hand out to the eagle. A wide smile spread across his face as the eagle nuzzled itself into his hand. There, that's not so bad, ow. Naruto pulled his hand back as the eagle nipped his finger again. I'm not food. He glared at Billy who was snickering, while the eagle released another loud cry. And just what is so funny? She's insulted that you haven't given her a name yet and try to touch her, said the amused satyr. Eagles are a proud bird, Naruto. She doesn't have a name? Naruto asked, arching a brow. She does, it's just not translatable to human tongue, said Billy with a shrug. The eagle shrieked loudly, her wings spreading in pride as she did, making Billy roll his eyes. Okay, well according to her, the closest translation would be the chick born in harmony of the nest, made with the king's feather. Yeesh, and I thought your name was weird, said Naruto, looking at the eagle and ignoring the deadpan stare he got from the satyr. Alright, your name is Mew 1/2, which stands for beautiful feather. How does that sound? After Billy translated for him, the newly named Mew cried out, taking to the sky and looping before coming back to the demigod's shoulder. She nuzzled her head against the blonde's and allowed him to pet her, much to his and Billy's amusement. I'll take that as a yes, said a snickering Naruto. He dropped his hand and looked back at the satyr. So, Billy, now what? We could go over the Olympians I suppose, said Billy, scratching his fuzzy chin while Naruto and Mew looked at him curiously. There's the big three. Zeus, Poseidon and Hades. Zeus is the king of Olympus and the god of the sky and all in its domain, which could be why Mew is so attached to you, he could be your father. It would be possible with the oath revoked. My father is not a god, said Naruto with a frown. My mom said he was still dead. Okay, so that rules out a good portion of Olympians, said Billy, frowning in confusion at that. Was it just Naruto's connection with nature that brought Mew to him or was it something else? The two continued to discuss the Olympians as they made their way to Camp Half-Blood, a name that slightly put Naruto off. Billy started out by naming the primary 12 and their domains. Naruto felt that Hestia got gypped when it came to Dionysus's seat being offered, but he admired her for the sacrifice she made. He was a bit conflicted on hearing that the new 12th Olympian was his new camp counselor, but shrugged it off as he continued to listen to Billy. To Naruto, the gods weren't as interesting as the goddesses, since there were not as many stories about them, unless it concerned punishment that Naruto felt was a bit much. I.e. Artemis and the idiot that peeped on her he'd have to write home about that wanted Tsunade. She would probably claim Artemis as her new patron or matron or whatever it was, then drink to Erosenen's memory and Athena and the spider thing. Come to think of it, didn't his resurrected dad kind of hesitate against the Kyuubi in its incomplete form, which kind of looked like a spider on steroids? Naruto shook those thoughts off as Billy started to talk about Hera, Zeus's wife and sister, something that hardly made Naruto blink, considering his homeland was full of incest, and he was sure that there was an Uzumaki who shacked up with his sister, but more importantly, also the queen of Olympus. They finished with Hera and Amphitrite, the wife of Poseidon, coming to a close on Hades' wife niece Persephone, as they came across a sign that said Delphi Strawberry Fields, no trespassing. She could totally be your mother, said Billy. He pointed up at Mew, who was flying high above them to stretch her wings. It could explain why Mew likes you. You said Persephone took mostly from her mother and abilities and as the wife of Hades, I'd say after she ate one of those fruits, she probably lost a lot of contact with the sky, said Naruto. He looked behind him in amusement. And I don't see any black flowers popping up behind me while I walk. I told you that was one case. Billy said with a frown. He sighed. Well, that leaves Aphrodite, goddess of love, lust, beauty and pleasure. Her kids know how to speak French like oui, which means yes, or their favorite pot dress impressionant, not very impressive. Really? Naruto blinked in confusion. Why do they like to say that? Aphrodite's daughters are expected to break boys' hearts to win her favor, said Billy, shaking his head. A lot of guys at camp try to get their attention. I pity the bastard that actually falls in love with one. All previous attempts have been disastrous well except for one guy. He got lucky, though. And her sons? Naruto asked, intrigued. Who knows, maybe she doesn't favor them because she compares them all to the Trojan Aeneas. If they have some special right, the camp doesn't know about it, said Billy with a shrug. Oh, what does she usually look like? Naruto asked, knowing that while the goddesses could change their appearance, they had certain forms they liked to take. She appears as the one you love the most times 10, said Billy. He shuddered and rubbed his arms. If I ever met her I'd feel so bad for doing that to Bibi. Bibi? Naruto asked in amusement. My girlfriend. She's a dryad, a land nymph. She lives inside a willow. So you're dating a tree? No. The spirit in the tree. I'm not judging you. But it's not like that. Hey, you don't have to lie to me, Billy. You suck, Naruto. I've been told that a lot, said the snickering blonde while his sadder friend glowered at him. He looked up at his happily soaring eagle and called to her. Mew, come down, I think we're almost there. What makes you? Oh, Billy's words died on his lips as Naruto pointed at the tree at the top of the hill. You remembered that, did you? I'm not an idiot, I'm just a slow learner, said Naruto, pouting at the unintentional insult. I never, but you, Billy groaned when he saw Naruto crack a smile as Mew landed on Naruto's shoulder. I hate you, Naruto. Oh, don't say that, otherwise I'll have to try to get on your good side, said Naruto with a chuckle, while he gave Mew's beak a small gentle stroke with the side of his finger. She crooned at the attention he gave her while they walked up the hill. Naruto grinned at his new friend. Say, didn't you say something about me being the first demigod you retrieved? Yeah, hey, yeah. Billy perked up. Holy crap, you're the first demigod I've ever brought back to camp. I live to serve, said Naruto with a smile. Thanks, Billy. Anytime, Naruto, said Billy, grinning back at his new friend. They continued their slow peaceful march up what was called Half-Blood Hill once again. Naruto frowned slightly at the name, and near the pine tree, Naruto saw a dragon, something he thought was only in legends. After Naruto pointed it out, Billy waved him off and they kept walking. Don't mind him. That's Peleus, the guardian of the Golden Fleece. As long as you don't try to touch it, he won't bother you. Billy had stopped, staring at Naruto as soon as he stepped past the invisible boundary, making the blonde arch his brow. Then his vision was engulfed in a red haze, making Naruto go wide-eyed. Hey Kurama, is that you? He thought just a bit hopefully. There was no response, making Naruto's hope sink until he felt something change. He looked at his arms, which looked a bit larger than before. He also noticed that his bare arms were now covered and he was dressed for a different weather. Looking down past his now sleeved arms, he saw that his sandals were still in place and his strange pants had become darker in color. Weird. Lifting eyes back to his arms, Naruto was happy to find orange on his arm, an orange jacket. He quickly slid the garment off and grinned at what he found. Back in black and orange, kicking ass and taking names was a jacket that was similar to the upper part of his jumpsuit when he was a kid. Well, aside from the collar being furred instead of just white. Heck, there was the same Uzumaki carving on the left shoulder. Turning it around, Naruto was ecstatic to find his clan seal smack dab in the middle of his back. He looked at his arms, surprised to find his white t-shirt replaced with a blue long-sleeved shirt. Mew chirped to him and flew from his shoulder, her talon catching something and nearly choking Naruto as she did. Quickly freeing the eagle's talon from the cord that was attached to it, Naruto followed the cord that was around his neck to a small green gem that made Naruto's eyes widen in shock. He thought the first necklace was lost when he flipped out on Nagato. "Naruto, your face." Billy said in alarm, not realizing that Mew's cries or the light Naruto gave off when he was claimed had attracted the attentions of others. What happened to my face?" Naruto asked, dropping his necklace to put his hands on his face. Feeling nothing wrong, Naruto looked at his hands for any signs of dirt, blinking in confusion when his skin felt smoother than ever before. His eyes widened in horror. "What happened to the calluses on my hands?" That was a sign of his hard work paying off, damn it. "Mr. Overtree, what are you, oh my," said a man attached to the body of a horse. Naruto could care less about the horseman, his calluses were gone. The shit was that? "Naruto, could you obsess less about your calluses and come say hello to your new activities director?" Billy asked, worried this would look bad if Grover nope, too late. "He's here too." "Well, there's something you don't see every day," said the amused head goat. Grover Underwood was chuckling in amusement while the new son of Aphrodite stared in horror at his hands. "Grover, I can explain everything. He's not always like this, I swear." "Naruto, damn it, you're making me look bad." "You look bad. I'll be a laughingstock of Konoha if I go back like this." Smooth hands. Civilians have smooth hands, shinobi have hands caked in sweat and grime. Naruto seemed to finally notice he was no longer alone. He raised one hand awkwardly to the group of demigods, satyrs and the one-horse man. Hi. Two bright lights appeared above him and Naruto turned his head in an effort to see them. "Hoi. What's the big idea, shining lights on me?" "Billy, what's going on?" "Why your mother's you've been claimed," said Billy, confused by the two lights above his head. One was large and pink, shaped like a dove, which explains the makeover. The other, however, was gray like an owl and much smaller next to the dove. "Been a while since this has happened," said the horseman softly before turning to the campers. "Camp, we have a new hero. All hail Naruto Uzumaki." Billy supplied dutifully. He caught Grover nodding at him, making him stand a bit straighter at the praise. "Ah, yes, thank you Billy. All hail Naruto Uzumaki, son of Aphrodite and legacy of Athena." All the campers got to their knees in front of him and Mew banked around a hedge before settling on his shoulder. Naruto reacted as his friends back home would expect him to. "What?" The horseman told the confused blonde to follow him after the campers rose to their feet. A couple of pretty girls that were younger than him whispered together in a small group and he could feel something akin to hope come from them as they looked at him. Weird, but when was the first time anything a girl did make sense? Like Hinata's decision to confess her feelings to him in the fight against Nagato. Touching, yeah, but really an inopportune moment to pick and it didn't lead to anything, not that he hadn't tried. He just didn't like Hinata like that. At least she was still willing to be his friend. "Boy, horse guy, how is it I have two moms?" Naruto asked, waving at another girl that walked by as she waved at him. Man, these campers were friendly. "I mean," Billy said, "the Olympians did some weird stuff, but My name is Chiron, not horse guy, Mr. Uzumaki," said Chiron with a frown as he looked at the boy. "And you don't have two mothers. You're a legacy, which is not unheard of, but very rare." "Okay, yeah, but why did I get two lights?" "Your ancestor, Athena, deemed you worthy off the bat to be claimed alongside Aphrodite's claim," said Chiron. He looked at the farmhouse, which he told Naruto was called the Big House, stupid and obvious, how could anyone forget that name? Nervously. "Things have been tense since the second Titanomachi." "The war against the Titans," said Naruto recalling Billy telling him about it. That reminded Naruto, he wanted to meet this Percy kid. He seemed like an okay guy. "Quite. Now, I've been informed you would arrive shortly, the head counselor told me to keep an eye out for you. I don't think he knew that you'd be so easy to spot," said Chiron, amused while Naruto flushed slightly at being put under two spotlights earlier. "I didn't ask for that or for these clothes by the way, where did these come from, anyway?" Naruto asked, a brow arched. Aphrodite deems it fit to show off her children during acclaiming, said Chiron in amusement. She perfects you. I'm surprised she didn't get rid of the marks on your cheeks. They can't be removed. Naruto said with finality. He wouldn't want them to be removed anyway. He was at peace with them and what they meant. Besides, they were there since day one. Yes, well. Your cabin is cabin 10, and how old are you, Mr. Uzumaki? 16. 17 last month, said Naruto with a grin. Boy was that a party. After he helped rebuild the Ichiraku stand, he was treated to a night out by the village funds, many higher-ups in the Shinobi Alliance, thanking him for his help. Got even wilder after Lee had some of the sake he wasn't supposed to have. Really? Oh dear, said Chiron, cupping his chin in thought. Drew won't like hearing that. Who? Naruto asked, tilting his head up and looking at Miu as she came in from her survey of the camp. Hey Miu, is it big enough for you? He got a small croon while he stroked her beak, making Chiron look at him. Interesting that eagle, Miu was her name, yes. Beautiful feather, said Naruto smirking as he caught the irony of the name now, while Miu gave a small cry at her name's meaning. Very interesting. Chiron said, sounding like he was thinking about something. The centaur looked forward as they approached a pink cabin. He raised a hand and lightly knocked, the door opening to reveal a pretty girl of Asian descent, dressed like she just woke up for the day. Chiron sighed and rubbed his eyes. Ms. Tanaka, the morning horn was blown 40 minutes ago. Ah, sorry Chiron, I must have slept through it, the girl said sweetly. She noticed Naruto and smiled at him before frowning as she realized what his presence meant. Another one? Your new older brother, said Chiron, making the girl's eyes widen. Chiron turned to Naruto, who had his brows furrowed in confusion. Naruto, as the eldest of your cabin, you are now the cabin counselor. It's different for each cabin, but for Aphrodite, who has so many children like Apollo, she has the oldest take charge. Why? Naruto asked, simply out of curiosity. Because that's just how mom does it, said the girl with a frown as she looked at her brother. I'm Drew Tanaka. And you are? Naruto Uzumaki, said Naruto with a grin. Miu squawked and he chuckled before looking at her. And this is Miu. Hums with a pet, that's a new accessory, said Drew flatly. She obviously didn't sound pleased with Naruto's arrival, but was tolerating it because of something. Probably Chiron's presence, Naruto thought. He shrugged it off though, she'd warm up to him eventually. Indeed, said Chiron, once more sounding like he was thinking about something while he looked at Miu. He turned and looked back at Naruto. I leave the cabin to you, Naruto. Drew should be able to help you get used to being counselor. Unless he doesn't want to be counselor, Drew said suggestively, looking at Naruto intently, almost glaring at him without actually glaring at him. Ms. Tanaka, please don't abuse your gifts, said Chiron with a sigh. The poor lad just got here. Yes, said Drew, waving him off. She opened the door further, allowing Naruto to catch a glimpse of the very pink interior of the cabin. Come on then, Naruto. Let me introduce you to the others. Sweet, I've always wanted siblings, said Naruto with a smile. Please be ready by lunch at the latest, said Chiron, frowning at the girl. I'll do what I can to help my new brother get the rest of these lazy bums up, said Drew with a smile. Chiron nodded and trotted off, leaving Naruto alone with his sister. Well, at least he had Miu. Ah! No birds allowed except for the sky rumbled, and Drew frowned. Well, if he's going to be like that, fine, the bird can come. Beagle, said Naruto, shaking his head as he stepped in. He cringed at the blinding pink, it was way more than Sakura had on her head. Once the door was shut, the girls who were holding various trash bags or bins of clothes dropped them with a cheer, their hands raising above their head, while Drew scowled at them. All of you need to shut up. She said, her command making them begrudgingly do so. She turned to her new brother with arms crossed over her chest. Welcome to cabin 10, Naruto. Now be a dear and relinquish your status back to me. It is after all too much for someone as new as you. Why would I do that? Naruto asked. The smirk that was spreading across Drew's face suddenly turned into a shocked gape while the other girls in the cabin gasped and the guys started to whisper. Naruto, you will make me cabin counselor again, said Drew, glaring daggers at her older brother, despite the kind tone in her voice. Miu shrieked at the underlining hostility she had spoken with, and Naruto crossed his arms over his chest. But that kind of attitude, I can be sure I won't, said Naruto with a frown. Drew's face turned red with rage while their brothers and sisters smiled at the claim. Naruto, I am cabin counselor, said Drew sweetly, dropping her dagger-like glare. Miu shrieked again and Naruto smirked at his sister, flicking her in the forehead hard enough to make her stumble back onto a bed. No, now you stay there until you decide to stop being a brat, said Naruto with a smirk while Drew's livid face glared at him. She started to rise and Naruto frowned. I said sit, Drew. Drew visibly struggled with herself before slowly sitting down. Naruto smiled again and nodded. Good. Now when you decide to stop being a brat, you can help me get the hang of this counselor st. I'll help you. No, I will. The cabin members quickly started to volunteer. Anything to keep Drew away from power over them again. Naruto blinked in surprise and smiled at his other siblings. Awesome, I could use the help. Thanks girls and guys. He said with a pure smile. The cabin cheered again, and many would wonder why cabin 10 was so happy as they walked by for an activity. Naruto was swarmed by his new cabin members, all of them asking questions like how old he was and where he was from. He told them he was from far away and would give them more after he got settled in. They asked if he had any other supplies and he shook his head, making them nod in understanding. A younger girl, Lacey, who had blonde hair similar to his own, pulled into pigtails and some strange metal on her teeth, walked him around the cabin while the rest finished getting dressed. She explained that he was in charge of curfew, chores and a whole lot of other stuff that Naruto was sure he could do by himself with his clones. He wouldn't though, considering his sisters looked like twigs compared to his friends back home and his brothers looked a bit too fragile for his liking. Before heading out to lunch, Naruto told Drew to get in the shower and get ready for the day, making her scowl, but oblige, lest she be embarrassed like she was in front of her cabin members a moment before. Naruto shook his head at her attitude and became determined to clean her from it. Shunting that concern aside for now, he continued to listen to Lacey as she rambled on and on about what Drew used to do when she was cabin dictator. And just before Chiron knocked on the door she was having me pull out clothes for her to choose from and then put in a pile, just so I'd have to wash them and put them away, said Lacey with a frown, looking far too cute for a 14-year-old. Naruto chuckled at her face before looking at his chattering siblings and then at the window where Mew was perched. Well, you won't have to worry about that from me, said Naruto, pulling Lacey into a small hug that she returned gratefully. He let her go with a smile on his face and he grabbed his jacket. As long as I've got this and this, he then pulled at his necklace, I'll be good with whatever I wear. Like your sandals? Lacey asked in bemusement. Not many guys could pull them off after all, but Naruto did. Yep. Naruto said with a smile. He got up from the too soft for its own good bed and stretched. There was a soft rumble that made Lacey look at him with a look of amusement on her face. The older blonde could only laugh. Guess it's that time. He went to the shower and knocked on the door. Drew, lunchtime. Let's go, you heard the horse guy. Tyrant, said Lacey with a giggle while Drew groaned. What he doesn't know won't hurt him, said Naruto with a chuckle. He opened the door and his siblings filed out in twos, Lacey waiting for him and scooting behind him as Drew huffed and went to get dressed quickly before rushing out the door after the group that left before her. Naruto looked down at Lacey and smiled at her, boosting her confidence a bit more and letting her run out after the former dictator, while Naruto chuckled. As he left his cabin and shut the door, Mew took to the air from the windowsill, flying in the sky with a shriek. Lunch was an interesting affair, demigods giving some of their food to the hearth in tribute to the gods. Naruto bowed his head and gave it to his mother and ancestor, dropping a bit for Hades to ask that he go easy on his dad for any sins, and then asking for Hestia to help him make good decisions to help his family like she did. The hearth seemed to get a bit warmer after his prayers. Naruto took a seat at the head of the table, Lacey on his left and his brother Mitchell on the right. Drew was at the far end of the left, a bit of space between her and their brother Eric. There were whispers from the other tables, but the first, second, third, 8th and 13th tables were empty for no reason in particular, well the second because as Billy said. Hera doesn't have affairs, that's her husband's job. And then Artemis's hunters were probably out hunting, the former member of Cabin 1 leading them. But it was strange, wasn't that Percy kid the son of Poseidon? Cabin 3. Before Naruto could wonder more on this, Lacey asked him a question that he missed. Blinking, Naruto looked at his sister. What? I said how did you beat Drew's charm speak? Lacey asked him again, making the table hush while Drew scowled at Lacey. The look was broken as Mew flew in, shrieking before landing with a few flaps of her wings on Naruto's shoulder. Naruto lifted a small piece of meat, pig he thinks, for her to nibble on. While Mew gobbled it down, Mitchell found his voice. He probably has his own charm speak, Lacey, said Mitchell. The boy got a few curious looks and he said. What? We all know it takes one charm speaker to be immune to another and Naruto's a guy, so that makes it stronger. By what speak? Naruto asked, both he and Mew giving Mitchell looks like he had grown a second head. Charm speak, said Lacey. It's something Aphrodite. Mom, said Naruto pointedly. He thought it was stupid that demigods would have to call their godly parents anything other than what they were. Mom or dad. Mom, said Lacey with a small smile. Can do. It lets the user manipulate whoever they're speaking to and usually doesn't work on other charm speakers or members of the same sex, but you must have a lot of practice with yours on girls. Okay well, I don't charm tick or whatever, said Naruto with a shake of his head. I mean, if I did it against Nagato to make him stop his rampage for revenge, but you just said it doesn't work on members of the same sex, so I couldn't have done it on him. Charm speak, said Drew with a scowl. Is a rare gift mom gives to her children. Sure, maybe there's some genjutsu you can use just by talking. And I have the Sharingan buried deep in my DNA, said Naruto with a snort while he took another piece of meat and ate it. Naruto, you can charm speak, said Mitchell. You just heard Lacey say that it doesn't work on other charm speakers, and earlier Drew was using charm speak to get you to step down. Listen Mitchell, I don't have charm speak. I just say what I feel is right, Naruto said with a shrug, making Mew squawk at the jostle she got. He apologized by feeding the brown feathered eagle another piece of meat. No charm to it. The members of Cabin 10 just stared at him in disbelief. He had to have charm speak, there was no other explanation to Naruto being able to just shake off Drew's orders. Before any of them could continue, Naruto looked up at the sound of footsteps approaching. A girl with blonde hair like honey and gray eyes that had a bit of red around them nervously approached them, looking up at the sky as she got closer. Naruto saw the girl mouth the word please, making him furrow his brow in confusion. When she stood right next to him, the girl swallowed before she spoke. Your name is Naruto, right? She asked, looking as professional as she could. Naruto nodded, but she pressed on. Naruto Uzumaki. Yeah, that's me, said Naruto with a grin. He scratched the underside of Mew's beak. This is Mew, and I'm sure you know my cabin by now. Hi Annabeth. Said most of the members of Cabin 10. Annabeth waved at them with a small smile before looking back at him. Naruto see, can you tell me if you've met a boy named Percy Jackson? Annabeth asked, her breath hitching at saying his name. I've heard of him, but I haven't seen him yet, said Naruto, a bit miffed at not meeting the hero of Olympus yet. Seriously, the guy sounded really cool, but now Naruto was starting to think he was one of those guys that thought they were too cool, like Sasuke. He could accept Sasuke's like attitude, having grown up with it, but he really didn't like other guys who acted like him. Oh, Annabeth said, her head falling and her feelings of depression washing over Naruto like a bucket of cold water. Naruto shuddered minutely from the feeling and looked at his sad siblings while Annabeth walked away. Poor thing, said his sister Alexandra. Since Percy went missing from his home, she's barely able to keep it together. Percy is missing? Naruto asked, going over the conversation he and Billy had about the boy in his head. Naruto's eyes widened as he recalled the present tense Billy used. Goat Boy didn't tell him Percy was missing. He looked back at Annabeth and saw her sit down at Cabin 6's table, she was a daughter of his ancestor. Been missing for a few days, said Mitchell with a shake of his head. Just up and vanished one day after going to bed the day before. We searched the whole city, but no such luck. Here one day, went to school and then gone the next. It's been driving poor Annabeth up the walls. Mew crooned and Naruto consoled her by stroking the underside of her beak, knowing that she as an animal was affected by the dark emotions filling his table. He looked at his meal, feeling bad for comparing Percy to Sasuke when he was actually missing. Naruto excused himself and dumped the rest of his meal in the hearth, apologizing for ending the meal so rudely and thanking them for hosting him. Those ninja classes on manners were useful after all, before he went over to Cabin 6's table. The children of Athena looked up at his arrival, his claiming appearing over his head again making Naruto wave at it in annoyance. He was claimed already, wasn't he? You want to sit down? Offered one of the boys, he had the same blonde hair as Annabeth who had disappeared from the pavilion and the same eyes. No thanks, said Naruto with a shrug. Can you tell me where Annabeth went? I want to ask her something. She probably went back to the cabin, said the boy. I'm Malcolm, I was there when you got claimed earlier. Oh yeah, that. So Aphrodite's cabin, huh? What about it? Nothing, just be grateful you're not Butch's brother. He's a nice guy, but the crap he gets for his mom. Who's his mom? Iris, goddess of rainbows. Ouch. Yeah, but like I said, he's a nice guy. Well, thanks Malcolm, I'm gonna go see if I can get Annabeth to talk to me, said Naruto with a nod of his head, while Malcolm shrugged. Good luck. Without her, I'm in charge and quite frankly it kind of sucks. That and seeing her sulk is really weird after seeing her so happy for so long. Naruto stood on the steps of Cabin 6, looking up at the owl that was over the doorway and then back at Mew. I dunno if Athena will let you go in, Mew, said Naruto apologetically. The eagle caught the drift and flew off towards Cabin 10, where she was oddly welcomed with open arms. Naruto felt bad that he had to send her away, but he really wanted to talk to Annabeth. Something was telling him to help her out, and doing so he would be rewarded with more than just gratitude, but something of equal reward. Curious about what that inkling meant, Naruto raised his hand and knocked on the door of the cabin. He waited a few seconds, shifting awkwardly on his feet. Just when he thought it was time to go, the door cracked open and Annabeth looked at him with her jaw clenched as though she was trying not to cry. He could tell she had been by tear-stained cheeks and the red puffy eyes she had. Naruto felt bad that Annabeth felt this way, not knowing how she was feeling personally but empathetically. Hi Annabeth, said Naruto, smiling sheepishly. Look, I know now isn't exactly the best time, but, I'm sort of. You're a legacy of Athena, said Annabeth with a nod. Malcolm told me. It's all the cabin can talk about at lunch. She was really strong for not letting her emotions get the best of her, but sometimes you had to let go. Naruto smiled a bit, recalling a similar experience after Jiraiya died. Looks like he was going to be playing Iruka's role this time around. Sorry if that bothers you, said Naruto. I want to know more about Athena. I know she's the goddess of wisdom and honorable warfare, but the second one really doesn't make sense. What is honorable warfare? Annabeth seemed to gain a gleam in her eye, explaining it as best she could to the blonde before her. He kept her talking about her mother and his ancestor, keeping her mind off of Percy for the time being. He was invited in after she talked about weapons, when Naruto remembered he was literally without a kunai, shuriken or anything else. So before he could even finish asking about what the demigods usually fought with, Annabeth pulled him into the weapons shack. We're the best suited to help a demigod pick their weapon if they don't want to make their own, said Annabeth proudly, her eyes cleared up and back to their normal gray. So what do you think? Naruto looked over the options. There were a lot of swords, which made him frown. He wasn't a sword guy. That was Sasuke's shtick. He liked getting up close and personal, hand to hand was always fun. He used kunai and shuriken to cover his long-range weaknesses, but there wasn't any of those anywhere. Maybe he could make them in arts and crafts like Annabeth said he could. Then something stuck out to him, something that called to him. His feet moved him and his eyes scanned the rack of weapons for what was reaching for him. He found it at the edge of the long-range weapons, leaning against the wall, not even on the rack. It was caked in dust, but still beautiful in Naruto's eyes, unused but full of potential. A simple bow staff, but it was far from being just a staff, something deep within him told him so. Caps that had silver paint chipping off of them covered both ends. The staff itself was a faded bronze and had an obvious gap at the center. Naruto reached for it, grabbing one half that slid off of the other, revealing a sharp surprise that Naruto was all too familiar with from the war. Flashes of fighting against Madara's shadows had him stiffen before he came back at Annabeth's voice calling his name. I'll take it, said Naruto, grabbing the other end and flipping it expertly in his hand so that the other sharp tip was away from his palm. He began an intricate dance, one he didn't know where he picked up, possibly ingrained from his fighting in the war, but one that was memorized all the same. He finished by connecting the staff, clicking it together with a grin. But surely you want something else, said Annabeth weakly. The guy would get killed if he ran out there with that old thing. No, I want this, said Naruto, nodding as he looked at it. A smile spread across his face. It feels right. I can't stop you, said Annabeth, still a bit unsure about his choice. But I really don't think it's smart. The smartest thing you can do is to follow your gut, said Naruto with a grin, quoting Jiraiya. His quote made Annabeth's eyes go wide. Where did you hear that? She asked him. Naruto blinked and his smile died down. My sensei Jiraiya. Jiraiya no Gama? She asked hesitantly. 6 foot tall, white hair and toad sage, Jiraiya. You know Iro Sennin? Naruto asked, nearly dropping his new weapon in shock. How was that even possible? I am her tails, said Annabeth. She rushed back into the main room of cabin 6, Naruto quickly following after her. The daughter of Athena scoured the bookshelf, asking herself what she did with it. She ran over to one of the bunks shoved to the side of the room and began nearly tearing it apart before she found what she was looking for. A dark leather-bound book with very familiar kanji written on the front in bright yellow. Yondaime Hokage, said Naruto, his eyes widening. You can read it? Annabeth asked, looking at the kanji with wide eyes. It's like a mix of Japanese and Cantonese, I can't make sense of it, the inside is Greek, but Naruto, who is this man to you? He's my father, why? Naruto asked. Because Naruto, he's my brother, said Annabeth. Minato Namikaze was a son of Athena. Chapter 3. Training. A son of Athena. Naruto said, blinking in confusion before it clicked. Wait, does that mean Athena's my grandmother? Seems that way, said Annabeth with equal surprise. A legacy only one generation away, he's almost eligible to be in her cabin. Does that make you my aunt? Naruto asked, a smile spreading across his face. Well, technically yes, Annabeth started to say, only for Naruto to cut her off. Sweet. I'm gonna call you Aunt Annabeth. He said with a blinding smile. Annabeth blinked before frowning a bit. Please don't call me that. She said. Okay Aunt Annie, said Naruto, grinning widely. Definitely not. Annabeth said flatly. What about Auntie Anne? He asked innocently. No. Please. No. Anoba. You're not going to stop until I say yes, are you? Annabeth asked dryly. Nope. Naruto said with a grin. He was having far too much fun with this. Fine. Annabeth said, giving her nephew a stern look. Just not in public. You got it, Anababa. Naruto said with a grin. Annabeth just shook her head in exasperation. The blonde son of Aphrodite's grin fell slightly as he looked at the book in Annabeth's hands as she started to flip through it. He thought about the war once again, his father's reanimated corpse fighting alongside him in their tailed beast forms, helping Naruto get some near-fatal blows on Obito. He knew that Minato was his father and that he was a strong and smart shinobi, but that was it actually. After Madara was defeated, all of the revived shinobi crumbled back into dirt, his father included. He hardly got to know the man. Annabeth. His voice was softer and carried weight in it that hadn't been there before. She looked at him curiously, seeing him look at the book longingly. "See, could I see that?" "Of course," she said, handing Naruto the book. Annabeth watched as he took it carefully, as though it could turn into dust as soon as he touched it. His brows furrowed as he looked at the lines in the book. He flipped through the pages, the same confused look on his face. I can't read this," he said. Annabeth immediately gained a look of understanding. "It's in ancient Greek," she said. "I could teach you how to read it." "Really?" Naruto asked, a bit surprised. His smile became splitting, it was so wide. "Thanks, Annabeth." "Let's go to a table and we'll start off with the alphabet," said Annabeth, going to one of the work tables covered in papers, strategies of old kings and generals from different eras spread across it, cleaning it a bit to make some room for them. "This is going to take a while, isn't it?" Naruto asked, a bit hesitant to begin a class. He leaned his staff against a wall by the bunks and quickly joined her by the table. "Well yeah, it's not like you can just learn ancient Greek in a day," said Annabeth with a snort. "You have to put in hours of effort, it could take months before you could read ancient Greek without struggling. Usually year-round campers get it down in their first year." "Months, huh?" Naruto asked, dropping the journal on the desk. He lifted his hands into his favorite or coined, depending on who you ask, seal. "Tajukage Bunshin no Jutsu." Annabeth covered her face with her arms as smoke suddenly exploded around her and she cut through it with her knife, getting a popping sound. When the smoke fully cleared, her eyes widened as filling the room to the brim with Naruto duplicates, all grinning at her. There was even one hanging from the rafters of the cabin by his feet, while about half of them had claimed the bunks to the side as seats. The rest were either seated atop the bookshelves or standing around her with their arms crossed or their hands on their hips. "Well, what is this?" Annabeth asked. "My favorite jutsu." And Naruto, hopefully the original, said with a blinding grin. "The Tajukage Bunshin no Jutsu, a forbidden A-rank jutsu that lets me make shadow clones of myself from my chakra. I'm my own army, and the best part is, every experience a clone gets before it dispels I retain for myself." "You lucky jerk, and they're corporeal," said Annabeth, poking one of the clones in the chest, making him bat away her hand with a smirk. She frowned at it and punched it in the arm, making it pop and making her gasp in surprise. "Oh, yeah, but they're extremely fragile," said Naruto with a chuckle, his clones grinning while in the back a couple of clones broke into a fight. They dispelled each other and Naruto rubbed the bridge of his nose. "They're insubordinate, too. Idiots. Clone from the best." One chirped before another dispelled it with a hard punch. Naruto smirked at his clones before looking back at the odd Annabeth. "Do you know what I would do to be able to do something like this?" Annabeth asked him. "Can you teach me?" "Yeah, see, it's forbidden for a reason," said Naruto, scratching the back of his neck sheepishly while some of the clones began to flip through the books on the shelves, able to read the English texts. "The technique costs so much chakra that it would kill anyone with less than Jonin level reserves. Lucky for me, I've got at least 2 kgs worth on my own. Heck, this batch barely cost a tenth of my reserves." Annabeth just sat down and rubbed her head as she took this all in. From what she read from her mother's journal about Minato, chakra had to be trained from a young age in order to be used. It allowed the mortals of the moving continent, or the Isle of Letoids, as it was once called before it expanded in size, to do amazing feats, but this she never expected a legacy of all people to have the ability to learn as fast as he wanted to. And being a son of Aphrodite, Naruto was attractive naturally, and already there were whispers around the camp, so went the gossip at her table from her sisters, about him. If it ever got out that he could fill the camp with clones of himself, poor guy would never be left alone. "So what do you want us to do?" Naruto asked, breaking Annabeth from that line of thought. She looked around at the expectant and curious blondes looking at her, making her smirk and stand up. "Alright, on the bookshelf is several copies of ancient Greek for beginner books, let's get started on that," said Annabeth. The clones immediately looked to the others swarming the bookshelves, and Naruto sheepishly scratched the back of his head. "Yes, they were a step ahead of you," he said with a chuckle. After an hour of the beginner books, Naruto had the basics down, though he nearly collapsed from the information intake when the clones dispelled all at once. Annabeth guessed that made sense, considering that the human and demigod brain could only handle so much at a time. They ended the lesson there, Annabeth a bit hesitant to do any more despite Naruto's urging. She wanted to see how he did with his chosen weapon anyway on the training field. The second she said the word training, Naruto's eyes lit up excitedly. The blonde moved so fast he didn't wait for Annabeth to finish telling him where to go. She managed to catch up with him and show him to the sparring grounds where a couple of brutish kids were. They all had the same Camp Half-Blood shirt on, but over that wore camouflage jackets. Off to the side was a girl dressed in the same manner with a spear in hand, watching two of the guys roll around on the ground. She looked up at their arrival. "What's up, Owlhead?" she said, smirking at Annabeth. Naruto knew it was a derogatory name, but from the smirk and her posture could tell she meant it all in good fun. Reminded him of Sasuke calling him Dober, himself calling the jerk team. "Nothing much, Clarisse," Annabeth said. She gestured to him. "This is Naruto Uzumaki, new counselor of Cabin 10. Naruto, this is Clarisse Leru, counselor of Cabin 5. Aries, right?" Naruto asked. Clarisse's smirk grew. "Not bad for a newbie. Time for initiation?" she asked, a bit eager to go for it. "No, Clarisse," said Annabeth, shaking her head. "I just want to see how good he is with his weapon." "A bow staff?" Clarisse asked, looking at the long stick Naruto held in one hand and rested on his shoulder. She smirked. "Not a spear or a sword. Spears have a tip that's off balance, and my best friend back home has a sword for his shtick," Naruto said with a shrug. There was a familiar shriek, and Naruto looked up as Mew swooped in and landed on his unoccupied shoulder. "I was wondering where you were." Mew crooned once more as he rubbed his finger under her beak, all the while Clarisse and Annabeth watched the interaction in confusion. "What's with the bird?" Clarisse asked, getting an insulted cry from Mew. "Hush Mew, she didn't mean anything by it," Naruto said, calming the eagle. "Mew is a golden eagle," said Annabeth, looking at the bird of prey with interest. "Well, yeah, but I was gonna say she's a friend," said Naruto with a grin, while Mew gave him a small croon for his soft stroke along her beak. "She sorta got attached to me while Billy and I were coming to camp." "It could be a sign from Zeus," said Annabeth quietly, trying to figure out why the king of Olympus's sacred bird was with Naruto. "Nah, she would have told Billy something on our way here," said Naruto looking at his eagle with a grin. "She just decided to come along for the ride." "Right, Mew." Mew cried out again, making him chuckle. He may not know what she said exactly, but he got the gist of it from the feelings in her voice. He looked back at Annabeth with his grin still in place. "So are we going to do this or what?" "Sure, let's just." "Hold on there, Owlhead," said Clarisse, cutting Annabeth off and getting their attention. "I think I should test the new guy. He is taking Selena's job, you know." "Clarisse, I don't think." "Who's Selena?" Naruto asked, blinking. Both of the girls looked at him like he was in the process of growing a second head before Clarisse's eyes narrowed. "Selena Beauregard was the best counselor that Cabin 10 ever had and was one of the biggest heroes of the second Titanomachi," said Clarisse, her voice dangerously stern. "That bitch Drew was not worthy of taking her job, and now I want to see if you are, Blondie. Right now, you're teetering to the side of not being worthy. I don't care what Billy said you did to that Hydra." Naruto blinked at that and grinned at the challenge. "I'll show you that I am, and when we're done, you can tell me more about Selena. She sounds awesome." "You should probably get ready to sweat and bleed, Blondie," said Clarisse, gesturing to his jacket and the shirt he was wearing. Naruto looked down at his jacket with conflicting emotions before shrugging. He could always just sew it back together. "I'm good," he said, taking his necklace off and holding it out to Annabeth. "Mind holding this for me though? It's sentimental." "Sure," said Annabeth, taking the necklace for him while Mew took to the sky. "Clarisse is gonna fight the new guy," cried out from a member of Cabin 5. The fighting kids gathered around them on either side of the two, and Annabeth stepped back to join them while Mew landed on the branch of a tree not too far away. There was a bit of chattering, and Naruto saw familiar faces from his cabin joining up with members of Clarisse's. Malcolm and a few of his siblings joined the circle as the word quickly spread, surprising Naruto at that. He also noticed there were a whole lot of other girls gathered around his sisters, making him blink in surprise and wonder whose children they were. Deciding to put those thoughts aside, Naruto rolled his neck and gripped his bow staff at the center with both hands, twisting and separating it while Clarisse pointed her spear at him. Naruto twirled his two baton-like staves in his hand before settling in a stance with one pointed at Clarisse while the other was parallel with his head, keeping the pointed edges in from his opponent. There was nothing but the soft chanting of Clarisse's name from her cabin mates and a few others, one sounded suspiciously like Drew. Naruto took a deep breath before his eyes hardened and he shot backward to compensate for Clarisse's charge. Sidestepping the thrust aimed at his midsection, Naruto used his right baton to knock her spear down into the dirt and his left to deliver a swift strike to her shoulder. Clarisse hissed, retreating and rolling her shoulder to relax it while they circled each other. Naruto used his batons to deflect small jabs sent at his head and body, getting a few whispers from the crowd. "Stop footing around and someone draw blood already," shouted a guy in the crowd. Clarisse's eyes hardened at that and she once more thrust forward, which Naruto sidestepped again, but he failed to avoid the sudden blow across the face from the other end of her spear. Naruto rolled with it, quickly getting back to his feet while moving his jaw around to make sure nothing was broken. That was going to bruise. How'd you like that one, Blondie? Clarisse asked with a smirk. My friend Sakura hits harder than you, said Naruto absent-mindedly, though Clarisse still took it as an insult considering the feminine name he used. Are you saying I hit like a girl? Yes. You're dead. Clarisse said, charging at him and stabbing her spear right at his head. Naruto yelped, wondering what he said wrong, as he ducked and dodged out of the way of her spear. He dodged too soon in one instance, allowing Clarisse to once more strike out with the other end of her spear and get Naruto right in the gut. Naruto's eyes went wide and he fell to his knees with a gasp as the air was forced out of him. That was definitely a Sakura-like hit. He coughed and used his left stave to get back to his feet, ducking under a side swipe of Clarisse's spear and stumbling back as she did a swipe back in the way it came. There was a sound of tearing fabric and Naruto looked down to see his shirt sliced open, revealing his stomach. There was a catcall and a few whistles that came from behind Clarisse, making her drop her focus on him for 1 second to use her peripheral vision in an effort to determine where that came from. Naruto used this distraction to his advantage by getting inside Clarisse's defense. He used his left stave to keep her spear down and out of his way while bringing the right up over his shoulder and then swinging it, cracking Clarisse across the face hard enough to send her to the ground. Naruto had his staves at his side while he panted, raising them up on his guard while Clarisse got to her feet, rubbing the left side of her jaw. She moved her jaw much like he did his own when he got hit before she turned to the side and spat out a tooth. She looked back at the blonde son of Aphrodite, who stepped away from her spear and thus from her while staying in his defensive stance. Not bad, Blondie. Clarisse said, picking her spear up with a savage grin on her face while a bit of blood came from the corner of her mouth. She twisted part of the spear and the head crackled to life caked in red electricity. That's so cool, said a grinning Naruto. His grin fell. Oh, you're going to use that on me, aren't you? Yep. Well, shit. Naruto was once more put on the defensive, avoiding the head of Clarisse's spear while it was thrusted in his direction again and again. More tears were added to his shirt, which he could honestly care less about, but a few that nicked his arms made him groan in annoyance. His jacket was totally going to get shredded or burnt. Time out, Naruto said, jumping back from Clarisse's spear. No timeouts, surrender. Come on, just let me take my jacket off. I love this thing. Not happening, Blondie. What happened to common courtesy? Naruto asked as he slid out of the way of another thrust that nicked the carving on his left arm. Oi. That tears it. He crouched low to the ground before jumping up, making the demigods watching crane their necks up high as he did. Mew let out a cry and took off after him, their height hidden by the fluffy white clouds passing overhead. A second passed before Mew returned, in her talons held carefully was the orange jacket Naruto was vehement about getting to safety. She dropped it in Lacey's arms before returning to her perch. Clarisse ignored the eagle, keeping her eye on the sky and waiting patiently. The minute ticked by and she scowled. How high did he jump? How the heck did he even manage to jump that high? There was another cry and another eagle flew down to land on a branch opposite of Mew. Clarisse felt her eye twitch in annoyance. Come down here you freaking coward. Well, since you ask so nicely. Clarisse swiveled around to look behind her but saw nothing aside from the crowd and Mew perched on the branch. Clarisse turned around again, searching for him. This turned out to be her downfall. She heard a pop, the crowd gasped, her name called by her cabin mates, and then felt something blunt strike her upside her head. Clarisse fell forward as her vision went dark, catching herself on her knees and going still when a pointed end of Naruto's stave was held at her throat. I win. Naruto said with a grin from where he stood next to Clarisse. The hinge no jutsu. Annabeth said under her breath. He had disguised himself as the first Mew to land, while the other waited before landing on the other side of the circle. When Clarisse had her back on him, he took advantage and got her pinned. It was truly a strategy worthy of Athena. How the hell did you do all of that? Clarisse asked when he lowered his stave from her neck. Naruto put his weapons back into their bow staff form and grinned at her. Ninja moves, he said, getting a frown from Clarisse. He yelped when she socked him in the arm. That was for saying I hit like a girl, she said. But Sakura hits really hard. Naruto said with a whine, rubbing his arm. She can break boulders with her punches. Oh, Clarisse said with a sheepish smile. Sorry. It's no big deal. Naruto said, shrugging. He looked down at his shirt and frowned. Was all that necessary? This literally is the only shirt I have. While Clarisse prepared a smartest reply, Naruto pulled his long-sleeved shirt off, getting an even louder whistle from his sister Lacey. The daughter of Ares gaped at his spontaneous decision to strip and, regrettably, admired his form. His abs were worked to the point you could probably chisel diamonds on them, and his pecs were large enough for her hand to fit in. His shoulders were as big as her fist, and his arms were at least 22 inches around. He was definitely not built like a son of Aphrodite, that was for sure. Man, Naruto's voice broke many girls from their staring. He was looking over his torn shirt with a frown. It's gonna take at least 30 minutes to fix all of these holes. And my jacket. Naruto, you could always just get a camp shirt from the camp store, said Annabeth, shaking her head in amusement. He had to be talking about sewing, which is something he had to have gotten from Athena. Naruto looked at her with a blink before he grinned. There's a camp store. Cool. He said, beaming as he folded his shirt up and threw it over his shoulder. Mew landed on his shirt-covered shoulder, making Naruto chuckle as he followed his aunt to where the camp store was. Aphrodite's cabin swiftly followed, intent on helping their brother look good while the crowd dispersed, a lot of the girls watching gossiping about the new hot eye. Clarisse's cabin mates walked over to her, her second-in-command Mark smirking at her. So Clarisse, should we warn Chris he may have some competition from the new guy? Shut up, Mark. Naruto was absolutely giddy as he walked out of the camp store, completely oblivious about the furious blush that was on the face of the poor cashier from when he walked in. The camp shirt was orange. He could honestly die happy now, well, maybe not now since that would leave Drew in charge again, but that's not the point he's trying to make. Sure, it was a bit tight, but his sisters said it was better that way. He really wished they had fishnet armor, though. When he had asked for where he could get some armor, he was told to go to Hephestus's cabin, who he recalled were technically his step-siblings considering his mother's marriage to Hephestus. He was curious about them, especially when Annabeth told his gossiping sisters to stop talking about some curse that was on their cabin. Mitchell explained it, talking about the death of the last counselor, Selena's boyfriend, Charles Beckendorf, being the cause of it. So now, there he went, off to satisfy his curiosity with complete disregard for the camp schedule that Annabeth was trying to get him to stick to. Naruto, come on, you want to be a good cabin counselor, don't you? Annabeth asked as she followed him. Well yeah, but I also want to see Hephestus's cabin and meet his kids. They're supposed to be my brothers and sisters, right? Naruto asked as he looked up at the soaring Mew, who was keeping an eye on him from above. That bird really did not like him being out of her sight. By technicality, yeah I guess, but they're only your step-siblings. Annabeth said. And your mom and Hephestus don't really get along well. No, really? Naruto asked sarcastically. Even he figured that out. How his mom managed to grow up as a Jinchuriki while being a goddess, Naruto wasn't sure, but he did know through their word and through Konohan law that Kushina Uzumaki was married to Minato Namikaze, even if she didn't take his name. He was pretty sure that Hephestus would have smote his father, demigod or not, for marrying Aphrodite if they were that close. That didn't mean Naruto didn't feel bad for the guy, though. Hey, watch the sarcasm, buddy. Sorry, Annababa. What did I say about calling me that? Something about not in public or something, I dunno. He shrugged and walked up the steps to the machine-oriented cabin. Raising his fist, Naruto banged on the metal door and waited patiently before it creaked and pulled open. The girl that opened it was pretty, a lot like the other girls in the camp, but not in a way like his sisters were. She was more like an experienced kunoichi, like Tenten or Tamari, with a hard face that was accented by soft curves instead of angles. Her skin was matcha-colored and she had dark hair held back by a red bandana. Hi. Naruto said with a grin and a raised hand while she stared at him. His eyes shut as he continued to friendly grin at his stepsister, thus making him miss the small lick of her lips while her eyes worked up and down his body. Annabeth cleared her throat, making both of them look at her, in Naruto's case with a confused look, while the girl looked annoyed. Hi Nissa. Annabeth said, an amused smile on her face at the girl, Nissa's, annoyed look. This is Naruto Uzumaki, new counselor of Cabin 10. He wants to meet Jake. Of course he is, said Nissa, sounding a bit disappointed. She smiled back at Naruto, once again reminding him of Tamari or Tenten with the confidence she had behind it. Name's Nissa, come on. I'll take you to Jake. I'll be back at the cabin then, Naruto. You should go talk to Chiron when you're done here to get a schedule, said Annabeth, shaking her head. Okay. Naruto said with a grin as she walked off, before walking in and looking around at the steam pipes that made the cabin sweltering hot. Whoa, you guys really are the Smith God's kids, aren't you? And don't you forget it, Blondie, said Nissa, smirking. She opened a door, and Naruto nearly burst into pools of sweat then and there, finding the main forges of the camp. Several guys and a couple of girls were gathered around a table, one guy pointing at something on it. Nissa whistled, making them look up. She nodded in Naruto's direction. Jake, the new cabin counselor wants to meet you. Okay, he's met me, said the guy that was pointing at the table, assumed to be Jake. He does know we're in the middle of working on our problem, right? Problem? Naruto asked, walking into the room. Nissa lingered behind him a bit but came up to his side when he stopped. He held a hand out. Naruto Uzumaki, cabin 10. You're the guy that was at the top of the hill, right? Jake asked, taking his hand and shaking it in a firm grip. The one crying about his calluses. Shut up. Naruto said with a pout as he took his hand back. Oh, I think we're going to get along just fine. Jake said with a small laugh. Wish I could talk some more, but we've kind of got a problem to deal with. Can I help? Naruto asked. Jake smirked at him and clapped him on the arm. Not unless you know how a converter connects to a socket. He said. Don't worry about it, said Jake. It's the thought that counts. We really need to get back to work on this though. Alright, well if you need help let me know, said Naruto. He put his hands in his pockets and shrugged. I guess I'll go talk to Chiron and get a schedule. Hey, while you're there, can you tell him we'll probably be in the forest again? Jake asked. Naruto nodded, making the counselor grin. Thanks. No problem. Naruto said with a smile. Nissa let him back out of the cabin and inviting him back whenever he needed some work done. Naruto just grinned as he left cabin 9, looking at Miu as she landed on her perch on his shoulder. Cabin 9 is awesome, Miu. Especially Nissa, she's pretty cool for someone who deals with so much heat. Naruto enjoyed a calm walk to the big house, shaking his head in amusement at the ridiculous name the building had. He really hoped one of the kids of an older generation called it that because the last thing Naruto needed was some god getting on his back about laughing at their building's name. Miu seemed to really enjoy the camp from what Naruto could feel through his empathy. What kind of bummed Naruto out though was his lack of interaction with Billy. Seriously, he felt ditched. Brushing off the feeling of being ditched, Naruto took his surroundings in, watching the campers as they trained now. Naruto wasn't Rock Lee or Mido guy, but he did way more than the campers did. This felt like, well, it felt like it was aptly named. A camp. Maybe Naruto could introduce these guys to some real training. He wondered what the hand-to-hand was like and if it could keep up with his Gamma Ken. Naruto? Well, if it wasn't the goat that ditched him. Naruto grinned as Billy came up alongside him, a grin on his face while he wore the same orange shirt. Miu squawked at him, and Billy chuckled. No, I didn't forget you, Miu. You guys liking camp so far? It's amazing, said Naruto with a grin. He frowned. You didn't tell me that Percy Jackson went missing. Oh yeah, well I figured he was at home with his mom, said Billy. He isn't a year-rounder so I didn't really hear much other than he wasn't in his cabin when I left for New York. You also didn't tell me about Selena Borgert or Charles Beckendorf. Okay, that was my bad. I was more concerned with the fact that you're a sage, Billy said. For a satyr that's like meeting a demigod of Pan, may he rest in peace. Naruto nodded in agreement, recalling the tale of Pan and his unfortunate death. He would have liked to meet the original sage. As he thought that, Naruto wondered who the father of the old sage was. Knowing that gods and demigods existed raised a lot of questions for the grandson of Athena. Come on, Grover and Chiron want to talk to you. Billy said, making Naruto arch a brow and follow the young satyr up into the large farmhouse. Billy led Naruto through the building to the back porch where the other satyr from before and Chiron were playing a game of cards. Grover, if you try to eat your hand again, I'm going to pull out the pinnacle chips. Honestly, the one good thing that came from the recall was the freedom to play whatever game I wanted, said Chiron, giving a stern look to the dark-haired satyr. Sorry, Grover said sheepishly looking up with the board creaked under Billy's hoof. Oh hey Billy. Hi Grover, said Billy, beaming a grin at his hero. He nodded respectfully at Chiron. Chiron. William, said Chiron, getting a groan from the satyr. The centaur noticed the blonde behind him and smiled. Ah, Mr. Uzumaki. Welcome to the big house. Annabeth told me you'd be coming by, something about not going by a schedule. Well you know, being new and all, said Naruto with a sheepish chuckle. True, I may have rushed that. I planned to catch you after lunch, but you rushed off before I could, said Chiron. He then nodded to the eagle still on Naruto's shoulder. I see your friend hasn't left yet. Yeah, Miu's a real sweetie. Right Miu? Naruto asked with a smile to the bird as he stroked under her beak, getting a croon. She really likes you, said Grover in a mumble, lifting a card up to his mouth and dropping it at Chiron's clearing throat. The satyr flushed and set his hand down before he ate it. He looked at Billy, who nodded, and then at Naruto again. You know Billy said you were a sage. Telling secrets behind my back. I wondered why I sneezed earlier, Naruto said with a smirk. Oh come on, they of all people deserve to know, said Billy with a roll of his eyes. Are you? Grover asked seriously. As the Lord of the Wild and the chosen one of Pan, Grover had to be sure that all things related to nature aside from gods were, well, naturally right. Billy had told him that Naruto, while lauded the advances of humanity, felt sad that so much nature had to be sacrificed for these advances, making Grover skeptical. Not even Percy was that sympathetic with the satyr's cause. I am, said Naruto. He grinned. Let me guess, you want me to show you? If you wouldn't mind. Chiron asked, admittedly a bit curious. It had been a while since he met a sage, and that was at least 1500 years ago. Sure. Naruto said with a shrug. It wasn't like he had anything better to do, and it was always refreshing to meditate. He moved to the railing of the big house and took a seat on it. Like so many times before, Naruto crossed his legs and let his hands fall into his lap. Within seconds, being so close to the Lord of the Wild had its benefits. Naruto was in sage mode, getting wide eyes from Grover and Chiron. Mew cried out again, settling onto her roost on Naruto's shoulder as nature embraced him. Behind him satyrs, dryads and animals came out of the woods to look at the blonde. I don't believe it, said Chiron, not as affected by Naruto's presence as the rest of the nature spirits in camp. The campers soon gathered as well, wondering why the dryads and satyrs were gathered around the blonde. Demeter's children soon became a part of the group, their own connection with trees and crops, letting them get a taste for what the spirits felt. Pollux, the only son of Dionysus, also stepped forward, absent-mindedly making strawberries grow around planks that made up the deck of the big house. Naruto finally exhaled, breaking the spell he didn't mean to have over the ones most affected by nature, opening his eyes and smiling at the squirrels that curled up in his hands. He looked at Grover, Billy and then Chiron, before releasing his connection with nature, causing the animals to scatter, getting some surprised sounds from the campers as they moved out of the way of the retreating horde of forest critters. His once again blue eyes landed on Grover again when the satyr started to speak. That was amazing, said Grover, smiling at the blonde and wiping away a tear. I never thought that a human could understand what satyrs do. Don't get me wrong, the campers try, but they're still humans. Thanks, Naruto. No problem, said Naruto with a grin as he hopped down from his seat. Didn't I tell you? Billy asked with a grin. A real sage. Well, perhaps power-wise, but there is more to being a sage than just power, said Chiron. What? Naruto asked. The toad said he was a sage. He ate all the bugs and everything that Ma cooked. Well okay, maybe he didn't eat that stink bug, but could you really blame him? A sage also needs knowledge, wisdom to guide others to follow their teachings. Chiron said. Knowledge is one of the most important tools a sage has at his disposal. But he's a legacy of Athena, no brainer there, Chiron. Grover said, getting the trainer to nod. Yes, but a sage is so much more than knowledge, Grover. Knowledge is a broad spectrum after all, said Chiron. He looked at Naruto with a smile. Mr. Uzumaki, I believe you could be a true sage with the right help. I would like to offer you that help. What things would you teach me? Naruto asked, curious. Different flora, proper applications of herbs, ways of the world as a sage would know it, philosophy and other things like that, said Chiron. I don't know about philosophy, but the satyrs can help with herbs, flora and fauna, said Grover, Billy nodding in agreement where he stood. Naruto looked behind him at the gathered satyrs, dryads and campers, and then looked at Mew, who remained settled in her roost on his shoulder. She looked at him intently, her head inclining slightly in almost a nod. He looked back at the three looking at him expectantly with a smile. Well, with all the eyes on me, how could I say no? Naruto said with a small laugh. He smiled softly when the trainer of heroes nodded and the satyrs high-fived, remembering the old man sage. Yeah, he could see why ninja was worth studying if it brought people together like this. Weeks passed and Naruto fell into a comfortable routine at camp. Taking care of his siblings was the first thing he focused on. Making his sisters train was no easy matter, he nearly pulled his hair out whenever they rebuffed his reasons as to why they should. When it finally came time to talk about his homeland and show them pictures that appeared in a small box at the big house, Naruto found their motivation by showing pictures of his friends. He laughed when Gaara and Sasuke ended up on the wall of Hades, poor bastards better never come visit or else they'll get swarmed. His brothers, on the other hand, were very easy to motivate. He simply said that it'll make them look a little less girly, and they were all for it. They loved the way they looked, yes, but they weren't that narcissistic. The second thing he would focus on would be his lessons with Annabeth or Malcolm when Annabeth was checking on Percy's mother. Naruto went with her once and felt horrible that something so bad could happen to a woman as kind as Sally Jackson. Learning about clear-sighted mortals was a lot of fun and hearing stories about her life before meeting Percy's father, Poseidon, was genuinely interesting. He made it a point to join Annabeth at least once a week when she went to visit, if only to get a better understanding of the life of someone connected to their world that wasn't a demigod. According to Grover and Chiron, it was a great exercise of his empathy and understanding of the human mind. While his understanding of ancient Greek was coming along faster than the average demigod, his lessons with the satyrs about nature and the ways of the world today were going much better. Though for some reason the satyrs grumbled at him after the dryads would stop by to ask him some questions. Except for Grover and Billy, they just laughed it off. Finally came his training as a sage. Chiron took full advantage of the cage bunchen, putting clones to work at studying the texture and images of various flora that could be found around the world or in Cabin 4's greenhouse, same difference. Chiron said he was one of the quickest learners he had in the subject, and Naruto wasn't sure if he was joking or not. He really felt some great respect for the original sages if they had to work so hard for what they did. Aside from those 4 primary parts of his time there, Naruto had a blast at the camp. He sparred with Clarisse and the rest of Cabin 5, quickly becoming a big source of entertainment in the camp by the size of the crowd, wondering how he would win or what jutsu he would use. It was only a matter of time before other cabins asked him for help, and that was when he met the members of Cabin 11, the children of Hermes and their guests, demigods under the age of 13 that were unclaimed by their parents. Oh, the fun he had with Hermes' kids, the pranks they devised, it was so fun. Yu quickly became a big mascot of the camp, despite sticking to him every day, even going as far as to make a nest on the window closest to his bed. At least she didn't bite the other members of his cabin, unless they were being particularly rude. She also helped Naruto claim the win for the capture the flag game between Cabin 10 and Cabin 9. Though they were quickly rushed out of the forest for some reason after the game ended, particularly after there was a rusty-sounding roar coming from the forest. It was the 16th of December according to the modern calendar, and Naruto was basking in the warm summer heat, relaxing on the beach after another rather routine day. Well, it was routine without Annabeth, who had been extremely jumpy for the past 3 days. She just up and left one day with Cabin 7's chariot and Butch in tow, since he was one of the best Pegasus riders they had. Let it be known that Naruto never felt more bad for another man when he discovered that. Being the son of the goddess of rainbows and being the best Pegasus riders. That was pretty much the exact opposite of masculine. Though Naruto did his best to hide the pity he felt whenever he and Butch talked, trying to sympathize as a fellow sufferer. No matter what he did, he could never get a unanimous vote to paint the interior of the cabin. At least he got himself and his brother some regular sheets to sleep in. Even Drew agreed to that vote, so that said quite a bit of the impact he had there. She had even started to stop using her charm speak on their siblings, so progress was being made. That was a good thing, considering Naruto was getting tired of stopping her charmed victims from doing whatever chore she had told them to do for her. He would retaliate by making Drew take the garbage out and wear the shoes of shame or whatever the hell they were called. It was stupid, but effective. So there he was, playing fetch with Mew on the beach that was within the camp borders. It was a spur-of-the-moment decision to teach Mew to play fetch, and it was even easier than Naruto anticipated. It quickly became Mew's favorite game, catching whatever Naruto threw and bringing it back in her talons, dropping it in his hand, and then landing on his shoulder or at his side. Considering how he was lounging on the beach, she decided to land next to him, which he was grateful for. Mew's talons were sharp. "Alright, catch it before it hits the water, Mew, and you get a treat," said Naruto, holding up a stick and tossing it to the side as hard as he could, making the stick go flying. Mew released a cry and flapped her wings to get off of the ground before shooting after it. She snatched it seconds before it touched the water, but dropped it and swiftly returned to Naruto's shoulder as he sat up. His eyes were on the falling object heading for the beach. He grabbed his staff buried in the ground next to him and got to his feet, separating it and preparing himself for a fight, while Cabin 7 came to the beach with their bows at the ready. The object turned out to be Butch and Annabeth in Cabin 7's now destroyed chariot, their Pegasus already galloping for the stables, while Butch chased after it. Will Solace, the counselor of Cabin 7 and a very good medic Naruto, met after inquiring about modern medicine, considering all he knew about was medical jutsu, and that was limited, lowered his bow as Annabeth walked forward with 3 other teens around her age. "Annabeth, come on, I said you could borrow the chariot, not destroy it." "Well, I'm sorry, but it was an emergency. I'll get it fixed." Naruto ignored their conversation, looking over the newcomers with interest as he locked his staff back into place. One was a teen nearly as tall and as built as he was, blonde much like himself, but with electric blue eyes that had a look of confusion and worry in them. Next to him was a girl of what he was told to be Native American descent. She was pretty, arguably as pretty as his sisters, making Naruto wonder if she was one. And finally came the short teen, and there was sympathy from Naruto, being the runt of the class himself with tanned skin and features much like Naruto's friends in Cabin 11, aside from the curly dark hair. And a fiery hammer above his head, so he had a new stepbrother. Cool. Chapter 4. The New Campers. Naruto watched in amusement as the short demigod tried to avoid being set on fire by his claiming, moving his head around, while his symbol followed with ease. The poor kid thought his head was on fire by the light. Admittedly, that's a better reaction than Naruto's. He still doesn't have his calluses back, damn it. Like his mother is purposely keeping him from getting them. Not cool, Mom. The symbol of Vulcan, said the new blonde guy distractedly. Vulcan? What, like Star Trek? Dude, I hate that show. You mean Hephestus, said Annabeth to the blonde. She nodded to Naruto, who nodded back as he stepped forward. His movement gained the newcomer's attention, prompting him to smile at them welcomingly. Hi there. he said, raising his left hand since Mew was perched on his right shoulder and his staff was in the adjacent hand. In case Annabeth hasn't already done so, welcome to Camp Half-Blood. Well, aren't you chipper? Will someone kill the light already? The claimed boy asked. It'll fade away in a bit, said Naruto with a smile. My name is Naruto Uzumaki. Mew shrieked and he looked at her apologetically. Sorry. And this is my friend Mew. She's been with me ever since I came to camp. To the newcomers, the eagle seemed to puff her chest out in pride at that claim. She looked over each of them like her species should, as a predator. Her gaze met the blonde boy across from her before looking to the girl standing next to him. She then weighed the new member of Cabin 9 with a gaze. Mew cocked her head slightly before shrieking again and flying off, making Naruto hum in curiosity of what she was doing. He laughed when she flew over his head and dropped the stick he had thrown in front of him. She landed on his shoulder and he smiled at her. I did promise you a treat and you did catch it before they showed up. Well, it's good that you're here, said Annabeth, capturing the newcomer's attentions once more. She put a hand on the blonde's shoulder. This is Jason, he's got some kind of amnesia. I need you to take him to Chiron for me. I'll do it. Naruto looked over at Drew as he gave Mew a small piece of meat he kept in a pouch hanging from his jeans belt loop. She had eyes for Jason, and that really upset the other girl, from what Naruto could tell of how she felt. Drew? Naruto's voice seemed to make her go tense and frown. Let Will take Jason. Annabeth nodded and Naruto shook his head at yet another strange name. Let Will take Jason to Chiron. But Naruto. Drew? Naruto was stern as he addressed the charm speaker of his cabin. He was very lenient at times, like when it came to lights out, but when it came to the health of others he didn't take any chances. Naruto nodded at her, backing down while giving him a small scowl, returning his attention to the blonde just a bit shorter than himself. Go with Will, he and Chiron should be able to help you with your problem. Thanks. Jason said, getting a nod from the sage in training. The girl that was standing next to him looked like she wanted to follow him but stayed where she was with a glare locked on Drew, one that was returned full force. Naruto sighed at that before meeting Annabeth's gaze. I'll take Piper, she said, nodding to the girl exchanging glares with Drew. Alright, then I'll take the new son of Hephestus. Come on, kid. Naruto said, turning on his heel and walking from the beach to the south in the opposite direction that Will and Jason had gone. As he passed her, Naruto put his hand on Drew's shoulder. Don't start anything, Drew. Please. Fine. Drew said with a frown. Naruto nodded and turned back to the new son of Hephestus, waving him to come along. They left the beach behind, Naruto using his staff as a walking stick though he didn't need to. The name's Leo Valdez, the newcomer said as soon as he caught up to the blonde sage in training. Not kid. Well, you weren't forthcoming with your name. It was better than saying hey you. Naruto said with a chuckle. Yeah, okay. Leo said, rolling his eyes. He looked at the taller blonde with an arched brow. So what was with the light show? The claiming, said Naruto. I assume Annabeth told you about demigods and stuff like that. Yeah, but I thought she was kidding, said Leo. He shook his head. Man, what government agency is keeping this top secret? Not any. Naruto said. The camp is protected by the gods, there is a boundary and a safeguard against mortal eyes called the Mist, controlled by the goddess Hecate. Aha. What next? There are magical fairies. Leo's voice died in his throat as a girl around his age came out of the tree just ahead of them, walking up to Naruto with a smile on her face. Naruto, Grover wanted me to tell you that he'll be at the big house to help Chiron. Naruto smiled back at her. Thanks Juniper. Oh, and thanks for the extra rations from you today. Not a problem, she said, looking at the eagle as it crooned at her. Such a sweetie deserves a treat. Oh, don't say that, she'll get fat in two places. Her head and her belly. Naruto said, getting Juniper to laugh. Leo just continued to stare at them, catching Juniper's attention. Naruto gestured to him. This is Leo Valdez, new arrival and a member of Cabin 9. Really? Juniper asked, giving him a small sad smile. Leo was trying to come to terms with the girl that just waltzed out of the tree still, so he couldn't say anything. How new is he? Literally just got here 5 minutes ago. Wow, Juniper said with a smile before looking back at Naruto. I'll see you later for treating. Of course, and tell Grover if he needs to call me just to send a rabbit or something, said Naruto with a chuckle. She left back into the tree and Naruto looked at Leo. So how's that skepticism going for you? Naruto asked with a smile. She was hot. Yeah, Juniper is pretty, but she's taken. I'm pretty sure Grover would pelt you with tin cans if you tried anything, said Naruto with a laugh that shook Leo from his stupor. How'd she do that? Leo asked. Walk in and out of the tree. Juniper is a dryad, a tree spirit. Naruto said. He turned to the campers walking around to their next activity and gestured at them with his staff. Camp Half-Blood is one of the last sanctuaries for the Mensatters. They help us train and grow as heroes and in the satyr's cases, go out into the world to find more like us. So there are more like her? Leo asked, watching a lot of pretty girls walk by and wave in their direction. He looked at Naruto who was waving back with a small smile and his eyes narrowed in thought. There are, but the satyrs, who are faster than demigods at times, can't catch them, so you know. Good luck catching a tree. Naruto said with a smirk. He loved that joke. What's with the different buildings? Leo asked after they resumed walking. Cabins for each of the gods. From Zeus, Naruto said, pointing at the larger of the two large cabins at the edge of the camp, to Hades. He pointed to a cabin in the opposite direction. They are the homes to the demigods who stay here. What is this place, a summer camp? Leo asked. Naruto laughed. On the nose with that one, Leo. Yes, there are others like us who spend most of the year with their mortal parents, but for kids with nowhere else to go, they stay here year-round. You mean I could live here year-round? Leo asked, grinning as another pretty girl walked by. Hi Naruto. She said with a small wave and a smile. Hi Leanne. Naruto said in return, making her smile widen before he looked at Leo. Your father's cabin is cabin 9, which is across from my cabin. What is my dad the god of? Leo asked, full of questions. Like how he could get some of these girls to look his way, but that could come later. Hephestus is the god of the forge and of fire, said Naruto, catching the small stiffening Leo made at the second word. His children can make amazing things from weapons to vehicles and are experts with machines. Though I still don't know where my staff came from. Leo looked at the staff curiously. It's made of bronze. Celestial bronze, said Naruto. The only material in camp that can fight off monsters, which I'm sure are aware of that exist. Yeah, those I know exist, said Leo. That spirit that attacked them in the sky was no joke. And he should know. Good. Because you'll probably be making weapons for the rest of the camp to use in case there's an attack if you can, that is, said Naruto, frowning as he thought about the problem afflicting cabin 9. Why wouldn't I be able to? Leo asked. I'll let your cabin counselor fill you in. Naruto said with a smirk. He looked at the eagle perched on his shoulder. You, go back to the cabin and wait for me will you? Last thing we need is you to be attacked by another anti-air trap. At his request, Mew flew off before they got too close to cabin 9. Leo watched the eagle fly to the cabin that just screamed girl power, making him arch a brow and look back at Naruto. Are you part of Butch's cabin? Leo asked. No. Naruto said flatly, glaring at Leo for even insinuating it. He dropped his glare after a moment and sighed. I'm the counselor of cabin 10, Aphrodite's cabin. Aphrodite? Leo asked. Goddess of love. Leo started to snicker. No way. Seriously? First two guys I meet are the sons of the rainbow and love. Wow. You just watch out for when my mom makes your love life a living hell, said Naruto with a frown. Yeah, okay, said Leo, snickering. Just so you know, I'm technically your older brother. That stopped all snickering. What? Hephestus and Aphrodite are married. You're my new stepbrother, said Naruto with a smirk. And I'm also related to the goddess of wisdom and war. Leo wasn't missing the threat and swallowed. Seriously? Yep, Athena's my grandmother, said Naruto, nodding proudly. He smirked at Leo again. Love and war is a dangerous combo, kid. Remember that. You got it, said Leo, making a mental note not to piss Naruto off too much. Hearing Leo's understanding made Naruto grin and clap a hand on his shoulder. Cool. Glad we understand each other. Now come on, Jake should be awake right now. Naruto led Leo closer to the cabin for Hephestus's children, and Leo looked it over, admiring it. Steampunk much? Steam what? Naruto asked with his brows furrowed together in confusion. Steampunk, you know, the theme. Leo said. Naruto just continued to stare at him in confusion, and Leo sighed. Never mind. Naruto shook his head and went up the steps, knocking once more on the front door with his fist. They waited for a few seconds before Nissa opened the door again, her face looking freshly wiped clean. Naruto pushed that thought to the back of his mind, smiling at her in greeting. Hey Naruto, did you come to see me? She asked with a smile. To Leo, she sounded half serious, but apparently Naruto missed that as he chuckled. Partially, he said. His free hand gestured to Leo. I mostly brought your new brother to his cabin, you should introduce him to Jake before he passes out. He just woke up, so he won't mind waiting a bit, said Nissa, stepping out and offering Leo a hand. Hey, I'm Nissa. Nice to meet ya. Leo Valdez. Leo said, taking her hand for a very brief shake before she once more turned to Naruto. Are you coming to check on Jake, too? She asked him. Nah, I already did that before lunch, and I highly doubt anything's changed in the last 2 hours, said Naruto. I've got to get back to my sisters and prepare them for their races with the Dryads. So you have to offer more stories about your friends back home, said Nissa, her hands folding behind her as she smiled at him. Pretty much. Naruto said with a chuckle. Leo looked between them, feeling slightly uncomfortable. Well, if you ever need your armor polished you know where to find me. Nissa said with a coy smile. Naruto smiled back at her. Thanks Nissa, you're always looking out for me. Oh believe me, it's my pleasure. Nissa said, then shocking Leo as she winked at him, making Naruto chuckle again before he turned and left down the steps. Wow that was Leo was silenced by a finger being put on his lips. SHH, quiet Leo. I'm watching the show. Nissa said with a small smile and half-lidded eyes as she stared at Naruto. Following her gaze, Leo regretted it and quickly looked away. Why was he surprised that she was checking out his ass? She was flirting with him rather obviously. That made Leo wonder how Naruto missed it. Was he gay or just an idiot? Well, he did say Juniper was pretty and he seemed a bit simple. Leo was leaning towards Naruto just being an airheaded blonde. Nissa's finger fell to her side and Leo looked at her, then to where Naruto was, more than halfway away from their cabin. The Latino shook his head and raised his fingers to snap them in front of Nissa's face. She blinked several times and then gave him an annoyed look. What the hell Leo? I said I was watching the show. She said, crossing her arms over her chest. Yeah, but the show is pretty much over. You're watching the end credits like there's going to be an extra scene or something ridiculous like that, said Leo dryly. You never know. He could get pantsed or something. I really didn't need to hear that. Naruto walked back to his cabin after his lesson with Juniper, catching a glimpse of Annabeth before she disappeared into Hypno's cabin. He was curious, but it was not really his business, especially if it involved Percy. Did he want to help her? Of course he did, Annabeth was his friend and his aunt, but there was nothing he could genuinely offer to help her with that she hadn't tried already, so he would wait for her to come to him. Something told him that waiting would be the right thing to do. And those gut feelings he had were usually spot on. Naruto entered his cabin and after leaning his staff against the wall, went to Miu's nest, stroking her head softly as she greeted him. Hello, Miu, said Naruto, smiling at his loyal friend. Did Travis or Connor try to sneak in another golden fruit? Miu crooned under his touch and Naruto took her answer empathically to mean no. Nodding in content with that, he took his jacket off and hung it on the edge of his bed, then taking his necklace off and offering it to Miu. She took the cord in her beak and looked at him while he smiled. "Gonna shower some of the sweat off," he said. He stripped and walked into the shower, relieved that his siblings were still out at their last activity for the day before the campfire, so that he could hop in without an issue. He was in and out in 5 minutes, making him wonder why it took his sisters at least 15 and his brothers at least 10. Really, how hard is it to get wet, soap up, and then rinse? Naruto used a towel to dry off, throwing it over his shoulders as he pulled on a pair of dark shorts made of a flimsy material, basketball shorts Annabeth said they were called. He grabbed a sleeveless version of the camp t-shirt, something Mitchell did with the excuse of trust me, it'll look good. Naruto honestly didn't care about looking good, jacket and necklace notwithstanding, and the stares he got at the campfires when he would wear that Chiron unnerved him, like he was a piece of meat or something. Taking his jacket to protect himself from the small chill in the air, Naruto headed out towards the campfire setup, grabbing his staff as he left. Miu followed after him, dropping his necklace into his hand before banking around and landing on the opposite shoulder. Naruto tapped his finger under her beak slightly in thanks before returning his attention forward. He was pleased to see that he wasn't among the first to arrive, the first two actually being the new unclaimed girl and their resident oracle. Now she was a character. Red frizzy hair, emerald green eyes and freckles that added to her attractive appeal, Rachel Elizabeth Dare was a very unique girl. When they first met, she playfully complained about her position. Why is it that every good-looking guy I meet is untouchable? First Percy, then Luke, and now you. Life is so not fair at times. Oh well, name's Rachel Elizabeth Dare and I'm the oracle for you lot. Of course, Naruto didn't feel like he was anything special. He was just himself. She gave him a dry look and then said boys are idiots. He didn't feel like arguing it. More than on one occasion he lost in those kind of arguments and wound up with another lump on his head. Hey there handsome. Rachel said with a smile as he walked up and sat down on the log next to hers and Piper's. Hi Rachel, said Naruto with a smile. He looked at the other newcomer with a grin. Hello Piper, right? Yeah, said Piper. She looked at Rachel with a smirk. Handsome, huh? Duh. You should see his abs. Rachel said. She looked at Naruto's concealed stomach with a leer. You could grate cheese on them. And how did you see my abs? Naruto asked, a brow arching in amusement. Water balloon fight 2 weeks ago, said Rachel. While he nodded in remembrance, Piper blinked in confusion. But it's December. Piper said. Have you seen snow around us? Rachel asked. Piper opened and closed her mouth a few times, making Naruto laugh. She pouted at him and crossed her arms. Shut up. I'm new to this. She said. Sorry, but that was funny. Naruto said, wiping a small tear from his eyes. All I can say is Cabin 11 did a good thing by challenging you to a water balloon fight. Rachel said with a small ear. She grunted as Annabeth rapped her on the head. Let him be, Rachel. Don't you have a hands-off policy? She asked, sitting down between Rachel and Naruto. Doesn't mean I can't window shop. Rachel said with a frown. She crossed her arms. Honestly, sometimes I wish Apollo was a bit more lenient. Funny, since he has the most kids at camp, said Naruto, cupping his chin with a hum. Rachel, Annabeth said warningly. Her nephew was a good guy and practically innocent to all the things Aphrodite's children loved. DCH, just have to have all the cute ones, don't you? Rachel asked with a smirk. Shut up. Piper and Naruto shared a small laugh at the embarrassed flush Annabeth had on her face. It was quiet for a moment, peaceful thankfully and not awkward. Naruto hated awkward silences until Piper spoke to him. So, Naruto, who's your parent? Piper asked. That sounds more like a game show question than a real one, said Rachel, getting a glower from Annabeth. Game shows were not her cup of tea. Naruto laughed at Rachel's comment while Piper flushed. That would be a fun game to play with kids in Cabin 11, he said. Looking at the blushing Piper, Naruto said with a grin. Cabin 10. Naruto, Annabeth said exasperated while Rachel chuckled at Piper's confused arched brow. What? He asked. She's new. Annabeth said, giving him a look. Oh, right. Naruto had the decency to look sheepish. I'm a son of Aphrodite. Really? Piper asked, looking between Annabeth and Naruto. I would have sworn you were her brother. Right? Rachel asked with a smirk. Handsome here has all the good genes. He is the new definition of smexy. I immortales Rachel. I'm sitting right here. Annabeth groaned. Well then move so I can window shop. Rachel said with a pout. And let you corrupt him? I don't think so. It's a miracle his sisters haven't yet. Annabeth said. She turned to her nephew and pinched his whiskered cheek. Isn't that right, Naruto? Annabeth? Knock it off. Naruto said with a whine as he batted her hand away. He's the definition of smexy? Piper asked, amused. Well duh, said Rachel, rolling her eyes. He's sexy fine, the perfect balance of sexy molecules and fine molecules. Not to mention being Athena's grandson, giving him the smart to go along with it. Thus, handsome is the new smexy. Piper was once again speechless after Rachel finished her explanation. Annabeth however openly glared at the girl for talking about her nephew that way. Honestly, as if she didn't have enough problems with the rest of Cabin 10 trying to show him off as their prime example of Aphrodite's children, like he's the new Aeneas. Her nephew was better than that barbaric idiot. Rachel, Naruto said with a small flush. He scratched his cheek. You're putting way too much into it again. I'm not all that smart. And he's modest. Seriously, he's like near perfect. Just give him a white horse. Rachel said with a groan. She looked up at the sky and clasped her hands together. Lord Apollo. Please, can you just make this gig season a land not a lifetime? Rachel? Annabeth did not look amused. I was just kidding, Annabeth, geez. Rachel said with a frown. So you're Athena's grandson. That means your dad was a son of Athena, right? Piper asked, looking at Naruto with intrigue. It wasn't every day that you met a kid with so much godly heritage in him. Yep. Naruto chirped with a grin. He nodded to some of the coming campers, giving a friendly wave to Leo as he and Nissa showed up to the campfire. Leo snagged a spot next to him, getting a small glower from Nissa. And apparently, I'm the first legacy to camp in over 50 years, I think. 40, Naruto. Annabeth said, correcting him. The last one was William H. Gates III, a son of Athena and a grandson of Hephestus. I'm related to Bill Gates. Leo asked with bright eyes. Naruto shrugged. He still didn't see what was so special about technology. Oh, the door can open with a click of a button. Mortals were just getting lazy if you asked him. Yes, but don't let that go to your head, Naruto. It's a very rare for a legacy to show up at camp. Annabeth said, to which he rolled his eyes, but nodded nonetheless. Soon enough, the rest of the kids at camp had gathered around the campfire. Naruto noticed Piper stealing glances at Jason and Leo was doing the same, but not for the same reason. Jason, the poor guy, looked distraught and confused, which was understandable, considering he was suffering from amnesia. Naruto didn't know what that was like, but he supposed it was akin to a Jinchuriki losing their tailed beast, like when he almost died from Kurama's yang separation. Thank goodness his dad had given him the yin half of Kurama. Naruto wouldn't know where he would be without the giant fox inside him. Kurama was his friend, practically a brother, and his current coma was upsetting to the blonde Jinchuriki. He knew that Kurama had to find balance between his two chakras, but it was taking so long. Naruto hated waiting, he missed his friend. He wanted to share the new world he discovered with Kurama. Naruto was broken from his thoughts when a bolt of lightning came down and struck the bonfire. He immediately hopped to his feet with his staff in his hand. Jason was standing as well, and the air suddenly became still, as if it were confused over who to side with. Annabeth stood and sat the older blonde down, while Chiron did the same with Jason. "The son of Zeus," said someone from where Apollo's cabin sat. "Zeus's kids get all the cool stuff." A son of Ares whined. "Jupiter." Naruto caught the name and blinked, his head tilting in confusion. Wasn't that a Roman name as well? This Jason kid really knew his Roman pantheon, didn't he? "Zeus is your sire, Jason." Chiron seemed a bit too eager to enforce that. He really was being Mr. Negative lately, even with training. He was shifty when it came to questions about the Big Three and events after Greece's fall. It made Naruto curious. "The son of Poseidon goes missing and a son of Zeus arrives?" Naruto asked with a frown on his face. "Doesn't anyone else find that a bit strange?" "Like you're one to talk," said Mark with a snort. "Mr. Ninja, son of Aphrodite and legacy of Athena. Seriously, how does that happen?" Naruto flushed at that being pointed out while the other campers laughed. Rachel opened her mouth to add something when she suddenly shot to her feet, her eyes going blank. "Child of lightning, beware the earth. The giant's revenge the seven shall birth. Child of love, beware the king's wrath. Lest the sons of the sage walk a different path. The forge and dove shall break the cage. And death unleash through Hera's rage." "She's coming out of it," said a child of Apollo. Rachel was caught as she fell down to her seat, the boy that spoke before being among the few that helped her into a chair that was set behind her as soon as she shot up. Rachel looked exhausted after giving her prophecy. Naruto didn't envy her for that, still child of love. "Twice. It seems, Jason, that you have been given a quest by the gods," said Chiron. He looked around the campfire. "Forge and dove are quite obvious indeed. Do we have any volunteers from cabins 9 and 10? "Count me in, Jason," Leo said, hopping to his feet. "I had your back at the canyon and I got it now." "Are you sure, Leo?" Jason asked. The guy had been nothing but helpful and kind. "You know it," Leo said with a smirk. "Alright, but you have to find us some transportation," said Jason. The beware the earth line had him a bit concerned for the way they would be moving. "That takes care of our cabin," said Nissa. She looked over where the Aphrodite daughters and sons were gathered and then stole a glance at Naruto as he fidgeted with his staff. "I'll go," Drew said, hopping to her feet. She smiled. "I'll be a great help on the quest, won't I?" "Drew would be good," a camper said. Others swiftly agreed with him. Naruto shook his head. "Drew must really like the way Jason looks if she's using her chartic to get on this bandwagon." "No," Piper said, rising to her feet. "I should be going on this quest. I've known Jason longer." "Really?" Drew asked scathingly. "And how is that, Miss Unclaimed Girl?" "Drew?" Naruto said swiftly, his eyes narrowing in disapproval. "Naruto could go," said Annabeth, getting some eyes on her, including a look of betrayal from Piper. "He is the only counselor of Aphrodite without a quest." "Now there's an idea," said Will with a nod of agreement. Many others soon began mumbling in concurrence. "But I should go." "I can help Jason," said Piper firmly. It was as if the campers had been doused in something, their murmuring changing to support Piper. "No. I'm a daughter of Aphrodite, I can go," Drew said with a frown. "You just like the way Jason looks," Piper said accusingly. "You want to use the quest to get closer to him. Isn't that what you want to do?" Drew asked with a scowl. "That's. And the fact remains that you're not claimed. If anyone doesn't have a right to volunteer, it's." Drew was cut off by a bright rose-colored light appearing around Piper. Her hair was pulled up and the jeans and shorts she wore were replaced with a long white dress. Above her head after the light faded was a pink dove. "Well, I think it's safe to say she can go," Naruto said dryly while everyone just stared at the girl. "What who the heck jacked my clothes?" Piper asked, making her new brothers and sisters sans Drew laugh. Naruto, wiping a small tear from his eye, chuckled. "That, Piper, would be our mother's doing," said Naruto. He got to his feet and walked over to her. He stood a good head and a half taller than her and he lightly clapped a hand on her shoulder. "Welcome to cabin 10, Piper." "Thanks," Piper said after a moment. He grinned and Mew gave a soft cry as she spread her wings, as if making the moment official. "Rachel?" The new siblings looked to the oracle as she got back to her feet. "I'm fine," Rachel said, waving off the camper helping her recover from her prophetic vision. She walked around the campfire before standing in front of Jason. "Jason, you must rescue Hera before the solstice. You know the great prophecy, the prophecy of 7, some of the 7 are here already, I'm sure of it." She looked exhausted and stumbled back. Before Jason could help her, she was caught by Naruto's clone. She grinned up at him while the new 3 demigods gaped. "Thanks, handsome." "Anytime, Rachel," the Naruto clone said, grinning back at her. He helped her back to her seat before he disappeared in a poof of smoke. "What the heck was that?" Leo asked, a few campers murmuring excitedly about it. Another reason I wish Lord Apollo was more lenient, said Rachel with a sigh. Handsome here is every girl's dream come true. A man who's good looking and can multiply. Mr. Uzumaki is a unique demigod aside from being a legacy. Chiron said with a roll of his eyes at the oracle's comment. He comes from the island where the Lettoids were born, now named the moving continent by most of the gods and the elemental countries by the natives. They developed a way to manipulate their own life force and use it to do extraordinary things, such as Naruto's clones. Only downside is they last about a second in a fight, Naruto said with a sigh. Does anyone here really mind that though? Rachel asked with a tired smile. No, said most of the girls sitting around the campfire, all of them smiling with eyes glazed over in thought. Leo scooted away from Nissa with the look she had on her face. They do make great cannon fodder, though, said Malcolm, getting a glare from Annabeth for saying it. What? They do. You sure you still want to go, Piper? Jason asked, thinking about the possibilities where Naruto could come in handy. Yes. Piper said readily before looking down at herself. Just not in this. Highly impractical. Lacey said, nodding in agreement. Lacey, you help her get ready for her quest, said Naruto. He nodded his head in the oracle's direction. I'll help Dustin get Rachel back to her room. Marry me, handsome? Rachel asked, pouting at him. Only if you're good. Naruto said with a chuckle. He missed all the jealous glares sent the oracle's way. Rachel just stuck her tongue out at them. Naruto turned back to look at Piper, putting a hand on her shoulder. You'll probably leave as soon as possible, considering the time limit. Be careful, Piper. I've heard some horror stories and I don't want to lose a sister I just got. Thanks. Piper said with a small stutter. I believe this calls for an end of the campfire. Chiron said. Campers, back to your cabins. There were a few disgruntled groans and grumbles, but Cabin 10 seemed to be excited to have another member. 2 in 2 months was a good record. Especially with Naruto overthrowing Drew, that was a very good thing. And him naming Lacey second in command, much to Drew's chagrin, was unusual, but still better than the alternative. Naruto turned to Rachel, who pouted at him and held her arms out expectantly. Rolling his eyes, Naruto looked at Mew. You don't mind, do you? Mew spread her wings and flew over to Lacey, landing on the girl's shoulder carefully. Naruto chuckled and then picked Rachel up, cradling her like a bride. The younger girl grinned at that while Dustin, the son of Apollo who was a part of the Oracle Care Group as Rachel called them, rolled his eyes and followed. That lucky bye. Nissa. Annabeth cut the girl off as she lingered behind with Jason and Leo. What? She is. Nissa said with a scowl. Who knew sisters could be such a pain? Leo said with a groan. What was that elf boy? Nissa asked, glaring at him. Nothing. Can you tuck me in tonight, too handsome? Rachel asked with a yawn. They were walking towards the big house, where Rachel had a room. Naruto hadn't seen it, his meeting with her took place at cabin 6. I think you're old enough to tuck yourself in, Rachel. Naruto said with a chuckle. Nonsense. She said with a grin. Who wouldn't want you tucking them in, handsome? You're too tired to think straight, Rachel, said Naruto. Dustin opened the door and Naruto walked in, setting her on the couch to the right of the door. She frowned as he stepped away. I'll see you tomorrow. That's no fun. How's about a kiss goodnight? She said, grinning at him. Her eyes clenched shut and she groaned. Stingy jerk. Just one. Good night, Rachel. Naruto said with a small chuckle, not aware she was serious. He left, giving Dustin a wave goodnight, leaving Rachel pouting on the couch. Dustin, think you can convince your dad to come meet me face to face? She asked her caretaker for the night, who chuckled in amusement. She crossed her arms over her chest with her pout still in place. I need to make a new deal with him. Good luck. Dustin said with a snort. Well, with a successful businessman for a dad, you pick up a few things. She said cheekily. Maybe I'll get lucky. And then the gods will grant me immortality. Not likely, said Dustin with a chuckle at her pout. Jerk. Naruto made his way back to the campfire, his mind racing with worry. He's had time to train his brothers and sisters, making them strong enough as genin who had been on a few C ranks. Which, in terms of regular humans, gave them enough strength to put up enough of a fight against Ares' kids without getting creamed in 5 seconds. Heck, Lacey could last a good 10 minutes against Mark, so that was something. Apparently, camp was the primary way most demigods got trained, and without knowing her personal history, Naruto wasn't really 100% comfortable sending Piper off without any training. Sure, she'd have Jason and Leo to back her up. Naruto was confident enough that she wouldn't need to be protected, having enough sense to figure out she had charm to like Drew did, but still, something about the prophecy had Naruto on edge. Child of love, beware the king's wrath, lest the sons of the sage walk a different path. Naruto groaned and sat down on one of the logs set out for the campers, his hands rubbing his face as he did. He heard a distant roar and turned towards cabin 9 before shaking his head and looking back into the fire. His eyes narrowed in confusion when he saw a girl standing between him and the fire, sitting on her knees and humming pleasantly while poking a large iron stick into the campfire. Shouldn't you be at cabin 11? Naruto asked her. Well, I think I would be welcomed, I have a duty to stoke the fire. She said softly. That seems like it would be a bit dangerous for someone your age. Naruto said. It's simply knowing how to avoid being burned. The girl looked over her shoulder and the flames seemed to crackle in her eyes as they met his. You sound troubled, groaning to yourself. I'm just worried about Piper, said Naruto. He felt very comfortable around this girl, she gave off the same feeling Iruka did. She set her iron stick down and turned to face him fully. She literally just fell into this role and she seemed more concerned about Jason than herself. I've had a friend who was like that once, unable to bear the thought that a guy she liked was fatally injured. I doubt Piper is that bad, but I don't know, something feels wrong about letting her go off alone and untrained. Let me tell you a story, the girl said, getting Naruto's attention. There was a boy much like you at camp once. Worried about his friend that was on a quest. He went so far as to break the rules and leave the camp to save his friend from the sea of monsters. He faced a sorceress, a Hydra and the Cyclops who held his friend hostage, all for the sake of his friend. This hero came back successful, and his name is heralded as one of the bravest and foolish heroes this camp has ever seen. Sounds like my kind of guy, said Naruto with a small smile. What is his name? Percy Jackson. The girl's eyes twinkled in amusement as Naruto burst into laughter. Oh man, I can't wait to meet him. He said. Naruto chuckled and looked at the sky. I think we'd get along just great. Wonder if he likes ramen. I'm sure you both would get along greatly. The girl said with a smile. She picked her iron staff up and stood, smiling at the blonde as she did. You will know what to do, Naruto Uzumaki. The last Olympian smiles upon you. Dionysus? Naruto asked, getting a giggle from the girl as she walked away towards the big house. Naruto started to turn to follow her with his gaze before shaking it off and looking back at the fire. He watched the fires dance, thinking of words his grandfather-like leader said to him all those years ago. Naruto, to those like us who possess the will of fire, everyone is family. The desire to protect one's family builds thicker and stronger bonds between each and everyone in the village. If the will of fire is embraced by everyone, the village will be alright no matter what happens. The old leader of Konoha said as he stood with a near-graduated Naruto on the top of the 4th Hokage's head, overlooking their village. That's when Naruto realized that to become Hokage meant to be more than acknowledgement, and he made his proclamation to become the strongest and greatest Hokage the village has ever seen. Naruto smiled slightly, looking up at the starry sky as he thought about his homeland. Cabin 6 would love it, the architecture, the military structure and the school. His sisters probably wouldn't care about that, which made his grin widen. They'd probably be more concerned with getting Sasuke's attention. Amused at the thought, Naruto gathered himself up and headed towards his cabin. He'd go back to Konoha after he was done helping his family. First son of Aphrodite to be Hokage, now that would be a goal to strive for. The next morning came all too soon for Naruto, who woke with a groan as Mew cried out to the cabin along with the morning horn. Several of his sisters joined him in groaning, enjoying their beauty sleep far too much. They woke sluggishly, Naruto getting out of bed in all of his boxer-clad glory to give Mew a pat on the head. Leaning against the wall as he stroked the eagle's head, Naruto yawned and looked over his siblings as they stumbled out of bed. Piper's got first shower rights, said Naruto with another yawn, getting some wines. She's got a quest, girls. First flights, first rights. Naruto waited for his sisters to finish up in the shower, a whole morning endeavor all on its own, and after an hour finally managed to get in. After he got out, he joined them at breakfast, looking over and noticing Jason's absence from the cabin 1 table. Must be nice, sleeping in before a quest. Maybe he should have let Piper sleep in. Nah, they would probably leave like he said the night before, as soon as possible. They went back to the cabin to get ready for inspection, something Aphrodite's cabin was notorious for never doing wrong. Naruto thought that in itself was a miracle, considering all the clothes, accessories and makeup their cabin had. According to Mitchell, not only were their sisters and a few brothers worried about looking good, they wanted to look neat. Pristine was the word Mitchell used. It was all going well until the fight started. Naruto was getting ready for his lessons with the satyrs when Drew and Piper got into a verbal tiff that very nearly came to blows had he not forcibly kept them separated. Thank the gods for shadow clones, seriously that technique was so useful. As he feared, Drew started it. She had started talking crap about Selena again, claiming that she went against their mother's ideals. Apparently, Drew's idea of true love was to break hearts, like Aphrodite had to many of her lovers. Naruto, personally, thought that was bullshit. Piper apparently thought the same, coming to Selena's defense and asking what Drew knew about it, asking if she'd ever actually felt something for another guy. And then Drew brought up Jason and Piper's history, which totally blew Naruto's mind. Apparently, someone had used the mist heavily around Piper and Leo's memories, making them think that Jason had been in their school for months. Not only that, but Piper's memories had her and Jason in a serious relationship. He really felt bad for his little sister and felt really pissed at whoever toyed with her head like that. Someone was going to get a good ol' Uzumaki talking to, i.e. pounding. "You're just a minfic little brat," Drew said as she finished her rant, getting a gasp from her sisters. "Drew? Too far. Put the shoes on," Naruto said, his clone forcing the Asian girl to turn towards the closet where they were kept, not being that gentle about it, but not doing it hard enough to seriously hurt her. He looked at Piper, her jaw clenched and her eyes blinking back the tears rapidly, deciding that it was a bit too much for her and walked her out of the cabin. "Come on, Piper," said Naruto as he led the younger girl out of the cabin on a walk. When he felt she had regained enough control over herself, Naruto decided to speak. "Do you feel better?" "Not really," Piper said, frowning. "She's wrong, I'm not crazy. Jason and we have something." "Well, it's not my place to say if you do or don't. It's not Drew's either. You and Jason have to decide for yourselves," said Naruto. He smiled at her. "I think you know that already though. Did you want to go on this quest?" Piper asked, wanting to change the subject. Naruto hummed, making her look at him. "Well, yes and no. Yes, because I would love to get out there and kick some more monster ass. No, because I feel like I could still do some good here," he said. "Do you?" "I don't know," Piper said, frowning. She really didn't. She had wanted to go to help Jason, and then there were her dreams. She wanted to find out what had happened to her dad. At the same time though, she wanted to take it all in. Lacey had told her she had a special power and she had no idea how to use it. Lacey also told her that while a strict trainer, Naruto was the best in the camp. He wasn't the smartest, but he was definitely up there when it came to infighting within cabins. Plus a whole cabin of siblings really beat out correctional facility school. "Well, I think you'll do fine," Naruto said with a smile. "You're a smart girl, you didn't just squeal in joy when mom jacked your clothes." "She do that to you, too?" Piper asked. The blonde deflated. "She took my calluses." "That's bad." Naruto gave her a haunted look. "It's horrible, I've worked years and it showed with the calluses on my hands." Piper gave him a look like he was weird but still smiled, letting a small laugh out as he looked away. "I swear only cabin 9 understands me." "Well, at least someone does," said Piper with a smile. Naruto was weird, but he was funny. And he was a pretty nice guy. Piper was happy to have a big brother like him now. "True," Naruto said as he smiled back at her. "I want you to take care of yourself, Piper. I could use another sister that feels my pain when it comes to." He shuddered pink. "I feel your pain," Piper said, patting him on the arm sympathetically. She released a surprised squeak when he pulled her into a hug for about 3 seconds. "And Naruto? What the hell? I can't let my new little sister go off without a hug," he said with a chuckle as he set her down. Piper huffed and gave him a mock glare while Naruto smiled at her good-naturedly. "Go find the others and kick some ass. Show 'em that cabin 10 isn't all pink and hearts." "Thanks, Naruto," Piper said, her glare falling into a small smile that turned into a smirk. "Try not to seduce anyone else while I'm gone, will you?" "What do you mean?" Naruto asked, confused. Piper just laughed, turning around and walking towards cabin 1. "Piper. Hey. What do you mean seduce? I don't understand. What if Naruto and Kyuubi get banished in Percy Jackson end here, and thanks for watching my video till the end.